across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 powerhouse hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 7 o'clock. Get on the show, get it off your chest, get on the phone and call me on 03444991000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, July the 21st. Here's what's coming up. Sacking virtually his predecessor's entire cabinet and instantly cancelling one of his flagship policies, Andy Burnham delivered his clear verdict on 2 terrible years of stupefying Starmerism. That two-tier Keir's rubbish reign of indecisive incompetence was a disaster. That was Burnham's clear verdict. But as Andy shipped in convicted criminal Louise Haigh and stamp duty tax dodger Angela Rayner to the heart of his new administration, the new Prime Minister also made it clear that he doesn't care what long-suffering Brits want or what they voted for. They didn't vote for a huge wholesale lurch to the left with a total national overhaul, allegedly to reverse 40 years of, by and large, highly successful free market liberalism. And yet that's what Makerfield's Messiah without a mandate intends to impose on an unsuspecting nation. Burnham has got about as much chance of mending broken Britain with Labour old-school 70s socialism as he has of ending rough sleeping with 340 million quid. What's this snake oil salesman going to offer us next? A cure for cancer in a month? 03444991000. Meanwhile, is West Streeting really a sensible appointment as Defence Secretary? In what way will new Foreign Secretary Crazy Ed Miliband improve the special relationship with America after Starmer ruined it? Trump's going to love Mad Miliband's love of windmills and solar panels, isn't he? 03444991000. And as for who is replacing Britain's nutcase-in-chief as Net Zero Secretary, step forward a hardline climate change ultra-zealot called Fiona, who, when it comes to ruining the economy to pretend to save the planet, makes zany Ed look like a moderate. Fasten your seatbelts, folks. We're in for a bumpy ride. You ain't seen nothing yet. 03444991000. In other news, two-tier Keir departed as he arrived as an enthusiastic sponsor of a two-tiered approach to justice. Why was Starmer and Shabana Mahmood so quick to interrupt the legal process after the arrest of 12 alleged far-right extremists who were accused of a terror plot to bring horror to an event attended by 15,000 Muslims in Suffolk? Both the then Prime Minister and the Home Secretary waxed lyrical about the triumphant police investigation and the lives that had been saved. Then 8 of them were released and none of them were charged with terrorism. In other words, it wasn't a terrorism plot at all. Why aren't the rest of us allowed to speculate after, say, the murder of Anne Widdecombe, when Labour politicians can speculate their heads off as long as it's in pursuit of the Muslim vote? 03444991000. And why has that lying disgrace Craig Guilford been given a £58,000 payoff? The woeful West Midlands police chief who banned Jewish fans from Aston Villa and who seemed to think his job was to do as he was told by the local Islamic activists was forced to retire after his pathetic and appalling decisions. Why is he being rewarded? 03444991000. And finally, royal guru Kinsey Schofield on Harry's Megxit regrets and his fears that Americans don't like him anymore. Hey, Harry, Who does? All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday afternoon together. And right off the bat, let's go over to my first guest. Looking forward to getting his verdict on the first day or so of Burnham's Britain. He is the Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South, Graham Stringer. Welcome, Graham.
Good afternoon.
First of all, let me ask you this. What in the manifesto, Labour's manifesto, that people voted for this government in regard of, where did it state that there will be a huge lurch to the left after 40 years of disastrous neoliberalism? That's what Andy Burnham has been saying since last week. He reiterated it yesterday on the steps of Downing Street, proving he's going to be a very, very different Prime Minister because he didn't have a lectern. There's a change already. Very, very exciting. But where did it say? He announced something massive. This lurch to the left, a pursuit of old school 70s socialism. None of this was in the manifesto, and yet Andy feels he has the right to impose it on an electorate that didn't vote for that. Now, the narrative coming from Camp Burnham seems to be, well, you know, it wasn't in the manifesto, so we're not really restricted. As long as it's not in the manifesto, we can come up with new stuff. Well, I think that is sophistry. What he's come up with is massive, fundamental, a reset of this entire nation that wasn't in the manifesto. I think that's an affront to democracy.
On your first question, it didn't say any of those things in the manifesto, as I suspect you know. I don't know what Andy's going to do. He's still not being clear about his plans. The very few concrete proposals. If you look at the makeup of the cabinet, I don't think you're going to accuse John Healey of being some wild left Trotskyist or West Streeting as being on the hard left. So I think we have to wait and see. I mean, the criticism I would make of Andy is that he hasn't been very specific in what he is saying he's going to do. The big problems facing the country, immigration, illegal immigration out of control, the economy, we don't know what he's going to say, because any changes and any improvement in the polls depend on those particular things. So if you can be specific about what you think he's going to do that's wildly left wing, we can talk about it. But I've not heard him say anything definite, apart from rough sleeping.
Yeah, and by the way, you know, that's a noble ambition, but you don't get rid of rough sleep. You don't end rough sleeping just by spending £340 million.
It's impossible to do anyway.
Yeah.
Because there are people equate rough sleeping with homelessness. They're not the same thing. Rough sleeping is what he says in the words. And we removed virtually all homelessness in Manchester in the late 80s and early 90s in the city of Manchester. But there were still rough sleepers because there are people who can make decisions, seem to have functionality, but actually are mentally ill and they want to be on the streets. They don't trust buildings and institutions.
Moving on, Andy Burnham, all Prime Ministers do this, by the way. I hope he's not deluding himself that he's somehow new at all of this by saying, oh, I want a changed, cleaned up Westminster, a different kind of Westminster. They all say this. Meanwhile, we from outside the Westminster bubble look at some of the practices there and frankly they disgust us. For example, if Andy wants to do things in a new and decent way, how about stopping the revolting gravy train, taking taxpayers' money and dividing it between money-grabbing politicians with their noses in the trough. Basically, all of these Starmer cabinet secretaries and ministers who got sacked yesterday are going to share up £200,000 worth of payoffs. How do you think the public look at that sort of situation? Why doesn't Andy realise that's the sort of thing we want cleaned up, and yet we're not hearing a word about this?
That's been the rule for a long time, that ministers who finish get a payout dependent on their ministerial salary. You make a good case that they've had a job, they've lost it. Do they really deserve a redundancy payment when their basic job, being a member of parliament, is still there? I think that's a good case. I don't think Andy on day one can do that. He would have to change the law and the rules to do that. But I think you make a good case, which I agree with, for scrapping that payment.
Yeah, exactly right. This is what, you know, those of us in the real world, we look at this and think, hang on a second, you did a job for just about 2 years. You've been sacked from it, and yet now you're going to get a load of money. You were earning, what, £140,000, £150,000 a year. Now you're going to get a great big payoff. Andy Burnham, if he wants to clean up Westminster, should realise, I know he's very much a political animal, has never worked anywhere else, but he should realise that the public look at that and we are disgusted, we're revolted by that. So I would suggest that might be a good way to start to clean up some of Westminster's practices. Can I ask you, Graham, as well, my interpretation of what we saw yesterday, in some ways I respect Andy Burnham for this. He said it was going to be a different government, a changed government, and you can't really do that if you keep the same personnel, the same people in the cabinet. So I respect what he did yesterday, but it was very dramatic. I mean, in essence, all but a couple of lucky survivors was sacked. All of Starmer's administration was essentially sacked. So what we've got here is a Prime Minister coming in and, in not so many words, delivering his verdict on his predecessors, saying, your people were rubbish. I need to completely clear them all out. And to do it properly. In other words, Andy Burnham is saying that his predecessor was not a success story.
Well, he wasn't.
Well, there is that.
I mean, the fact is, if he'd been a good and successful and effective Prime Minister, he would still be there. If it had been a good, successful and effective cabinet, those ministers would be there. I never like attacking individuals, either in my own party or other parties. I believe arguments should be about policy. But that cabinet was a failure because they had the power to make changes. I don't know what happened in every cabinet meeting, but they went along and didn't challenge a lot of the decisions that the Prime Minister made. So I'm not surprised that Andy said, well, this is a change. We've had a failure. The government isn't as most members of the Labour Party, most members of the public. If you go back to the local government elections, it was hardly a ringing endorsement of what that cabinet at the top of government were doing. So I think it was quite reasonable to change people. If people fail in the jobs, if you fail in your job, when I worked in the private sector, if I failed in my job, you go. It's as simple as that.
No, I'm not against what Andy did. I understand why he did it, but it was a really dramatic statement. Everything that came before me was a disaster. I mean, he didn't just he didn't just fire a few cabinet ministers. He basically swept the whole room clean.
Well, yes. I mean, I think part of it. I don't want to go through them individually.
No.
But the last reorganisation, not so much mentioned in the London press, but there was a slaughter of Northern MPs who were cabinet ministers. And I think there was a change in balance to rebalance what Keir had done, whereas he'd appointed people from the north, but North London, not the north of England. So I think there was a rebalancing up. But I think the fundamental point was that cabinet was not a success.
Indeed, I don't think anybody would argue with that. What do you make of Darren Jones, the sacked Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, immediately rearing his pretty head, I was about to say ugly, that's not very fair, his very handsome head, to emerge as an early severe critic of this government, because John Healey, the new Chancellor, which, by the way, I think was a pretty good appointment, John Healey immediately announced, I'm going to take VAT off your energy bills. That will help you. That will give you breathing space. In actual fact, it only amounts to 86p a week. People have been joking, oh, you can get a bag of celery for that, or 2 pints of milk. It's not exactly fundamental, but it's a start. It's the heart in the right place stuff. He said that. Darren Jones immediately tweeted, because Healey had made it clear that this VAT reduction, removal, will be funded by Andy Burnham's scrapping of the digital ID scheme. Well, Darren Jones cropped up to say, well, I got bad news for you. We hadn't actually funded the digital ID scheme, so scrapping that is not going to save you a penny. Where are you going to get the money from? A little bit of a collision with reality, I think, there.
Well, I think Darren should have been quiet. I think many ex-ministers want to criticise the government, but they're still members of Parliament. They're entitled to do that. I think doing it after the day after you're sacked, it reeks of sour grapes, doesn't it?
It does.
It's not. It's not a good thing to do. In terms of clearly, it isn't funded. 800 million or whatever it will be is a lot of money to you and I and the vast majority of people in this country, but it's within the margins of error within the government's budget. It's a rounding area in a budget of billions. So I don't think that in itself, there are much bigger problems with the budget, with spending too much money and not getting enough money in. That's where the real worry is, not about a tiny fraction of what's going on. But I think what Andy was doing, it's symbolic, really. He's saying, I'm on your side. This is a small amount of money, but I'm showing I'm going to be different from what went before. And I don't blame you for doing that. I would have possibly thought of other things to do, because the problem with VAT is it's a regressive tax. So if you scrap it, people who pay more, usually people with bigger houses, it saves them more money. But on the whole, it's just saying, this is a different government, we're on your side. It's not big potatoes, really.
Yeah. He might like to delve into, if you go through polling has revealed the sort of list of voters' priorities. You know, at the very top, of course, are the migrant crisis, immigration, the economy, cost of living, and so on and so forth, net zero as well. The very, very bottom of that list of voters' priorities, what they're interested in, is devolution. More mayors. That's his big obsession. People don't really care about that. I think that is sort of political ideologue stuff. Can I just ask you this, though, Graham, as we part company? It's always good to have you on the show. I really appreciate it. Do you think it might come back to bite Andy Burnham, appointing, you know, a convicted fraudster, Louise Haigh, as basically his government enforcer? She'll be the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, which is this sort of cabinet secretary without portfolio job, and also bringing back to housing that cabinet secretary who was revealed to have so much interest in her own housing, Angela Rayner, who still many electors, many voters believe is a stamp duty tax dodger. Do you think that those two appointments might come back to bite him, if only in terms of the way the people feel about them?
I think basically a lot of people think that most MPs have their fingers in the till. It's not true. Most MPs are doing it for the right reason, whichever party. They want to do the best for the people they represent. So it's not a good look. But I would say this about Louise. Louise did what anybody starting a new job would do. If they'd got a problem, they tell their new employer. She told the Prime Minister, when she was appointed into that role, she'd had this conviction, now spent, and told him. He said, fine, carry on, Louise. And then when it became public, he ditched her.
Yeah.
So I think the Prime Minister was at fault. It's not a good look for Louise, but I think you have to ask yourself the common sense question. She did something as a young woman, she was dishonest as a young woman, she paid the penalty. When do you finish? When can you have a job that's responsible with money or responsible politically? And I think it's probably this time. But you're right. People don't like that because it fits in with people's prejudices. I have slightly less sympathy for Angela, who I like as a person. Her career is extraordinary from where she's come from. But I think, as well as the financial difficulties, going to live in Sussex when you represent Ashton, you couldn't imagine two more dissimilar places. She's got more money than she's had. I can understand that she might want to move a little bit out of Ashton, living in the Pennines close by. I think people would have understood that. She would have the benefit then of a creditable career, getting to near the top of that structure in a very difficult world where she's had virtually no education. But I don't like the idea, apart from what may or may not have happened with the stamp duty, of an MP saying, right, well, I'm going to put my base 260 miles away from where I'm representing.
Yeah, with a nice sea view, an £800,000 apartment. Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Woman of the people there, Graham. Graham, great to talk to you. As always, thank you so much for coming on. Graham Stringer, the great Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South, a man who, as you've just heard, speaks his own mind. Always love having him on. We are going to go to break now. When we'll come back, we're going to return to that issue of the VAT being taken off energy bills and who's going to pay for it, what's going to pay for it, because Darren Jones says you're not going to pay for it by scrapping the digital ID programme because we, as in the Starmer regime, hadn't worked out how to pay for that. So already it's beginning, the wheels are beginning to come off. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to go back to that issue, this big, generous offer by both the Prime Minister and his new Chancellor of the Exchequer, John Healey. This is going to be a different government. We're going to help you out, you know. Going to give you more breathing space. So we're going to cancel that VAT on your energy bills. You know, the energy bills that Ed Miliband has made the highest in the Western world by his mad net zero insanity. Well, we're going to cancel the VAT on that. And that will save you a stellar 86p a week, 2 pints of milk a week. Magnificent. You'll get some celery, maybe. All sorts of wonderful things you can get with the 86p. Trouble is, they said they were going to fund this generous cut to your energy bills by scrapping the digital ID scheme. Darren Jones, former Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, immediately tweeted, yeah, the trouble is we hadn't funded that. So there's no money to find by scrapping that scheme. You're going to have to find the money elsewhere. So already you might believe, you might think the wheels are starting to come off Andy Burnham's economic generosity. Let's talk to the co-founder of the Together Declaration, an organisation that campaigned passionately against the digital ID scourge, which I totally agree with. He is Alan Miller. Hello, Alan.
Hello.
Well, listen, I mean, you know, already, yeah, I love the way that Andy Burnham says, we're going to end factionalism in Westminster, you know, and he immediately gets rid of Starmer's faction and puts in Burnham's faction into the cabinet. So you can forget about that nonsense. But a collision with reality almost immediately when Darren Jones, sacked, said, well, look, you can't fund this VAT cut on energy bills with the money you're going to save on the scrapped digital ID scheme because we never funded the digital ID scheme. So you're going to have to find the money from somewhere else. This is just Burnham and his gang trying to act generous without even thinking it through.
Yeah, I think the thing is we've got a situation where we haven't really heard much from Andy Burnham, who has come in without a mandate, less than 25,000 voters from Makerfield. And now we're in a situation where we have a new PM veering from the manifesto. Really, we should have a general election. But it is true that the seriousness is lacking across the board. So, you know, estimates prior by the LSE to even under the time of Tony Blair was between 11 and 19 billion costs for a national ID rollout. So it certainly was going to be more than 1.8 billion, but they hadn't allocated for it. And so therefore they haven't been able to reallocate it. So that's one point. But the other point that's really, really important, Kevin, and we're making sure everyone's clear about is, whilst they're saying, and it's great that everyone's fought back against digital ID in the form of a digital ID card you have to produce, the actual digital ID infrastructure, 8 million directors being forced into one login, children with a children wellbeing school bill all being given a digital unique identifier, a social media ban, which means by de facto everyone will have to prove who they are, digitally verifying, digital driving licenses. In fact, the whole infrastructure that is going to force us to basically have digital ID to be able to participate. And we're saying we must be able to do things in an analog way or not be forced to verify to get into the town square, or indeed to get into things in terms of medicine or other areas of life. So we've got a campaign carrying on that everyone's signing the pledge saying they won't be forced to download government ID onto any of their devices. We're sending those to Andy Burnham. It's good that they know how much people dislike the idea of a digital ID, but we've got the actual one login which sits beneath the Gov UK digital wallet, the app, and that's where everything's going to be going in and effectively forcing everyone to participate. So we're also saying you must have the right not to verify as part of our digital Bill of Rights.
Absolutely.
So it's very important we keep up that campaign with vigilance.
Yeah, I think that they're still trying to get it in by the back door. It's a very people-pleasing announcement because Burnham at least realised what Starmer didn't, that the people of Britain viscerally do not want digital IDs. But I still think they are trying to sneak as much of it as they can under the counter, as it were. But let me ask you generally, Alan, I think the scandal, the true scandal here, is this nation has been subjected to what amounts to not far off a communist coup, a serious left-wing coup d'etat by the Messiah without a mandate, the man from Makerfield, who hasn't got a mandate at all for anything, and yet he comes in and says, oh, by the way, I'm going to shift us all to the left. I'm going to undo 40 years of free market neoliberalism. I'm going to impose on this country hardcore 70s Labour socialism. Where's his mandate for that? We didn't vote for that. It's a disgrace that he's being allowed to do this.
We absolutely did not vote for that. 25,000, just under 25,000 people voted for him in Makerfield. And there's lots of claims that are made for the so-called King of the North. But if you actually look at them with scrutiny, everything from homelessness to house building to crime and a range of other metrics are not what he presents, particularly not when you get into the surrounding areas, Bury, Wigan and others, some of the most deprived areas in the country as it happens. But we have a situation indeed where, you know, he's saying Neil Kinnock is someone to be emulated. And, you know, it's quite remarkable that we haven't heard, he hasn't done any serious interviews. I mean, Gary Lineker, you know, and the idea that you put forward outline your proposals, but this is the point, right? You know, at least you could say about Keir Starmer, they had been elected on the basis of their manifesto. Whatever then happened subsequently was what we all saw. But that's not the case of Andy Burnham. So there should be a general election now. But at the same time, what we're saying to everyone is, we must make sure that we keep the pressure up. This is as true for the areas around digital ID and surveillance state and concerns around tracking and privacy as it is for free speech. And
Alan, let me just play you a little bit about what Andy Burnham said earlier, and we'll come back to you.
I'm cutting taxes on your energy bills. I've said it, Westminster isn't working for people. I know too many families are struggling. It's not good enough. I know we need to give people more breathing space. This is a start. It will save tens of millions of households money, but there's more we can do. Let's bring back hope, everybody. That's what we're starting to do.
No, you're not. He finished that speech yesterday, Alan, in Downing Street. By the way, can we please ask this guy, Burnham, to stop doing this, like he's the Dalai Bloody Lama or something? But that's another issue. But he finished that speech, you know, saying, you know, 40 years of neoliberalism, we're going to go to the left, Labour, all that claptrap. And then he just, like, at the end, he said, oh, by the way, I'm going to end rough sleeping with 340 million quid. This, I think, is going to be a pattern. He's going to finish speeches by saying, oh, by the way, I'll cure cancer in a month, and so on and so forth. It's just empty promises. He has no chance of ending rough sleeping whatsoever with 340 million or 340 billion quid. It's just a stupid thing to say, oh, I'm going to bring back hope. He's got to do better than this. He's got to offer us some substance as opposed to all this sort of feel-good Harold Wilson vibes.
Well, the thing about what's happened with mayors is that, you know, we've got into a pattern where they can do this kind of behaviour, like this kind of like, oh yeah, it's form over content. It's like this kind of spinny moment and make things sound great and cool, and you're not really part of this is the whole point about the devolution moment of saying we should have more mayors everywhere. It's to avoid the bustle and hustle, the scrutiny of Parliament, where the actual democratic activity takes place. And so we haven't seen the substance. We're waiting to see the significant policy documents. We're, you know, we're being told these general strap lines, and we're being told we're going to go back to the ideas of the 70s. I mean, it is really very concerning. And I think the thing is that whilst there is another kind of plaster over a situation. It's very telling that no other, at least when they had a coronation before with Rishi Sunak, there was at least some kind of sense of there'd been elections.
There was a democratic process, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at least with what happened with Boris, now we see a situation where it's basically straight up a coronation. And I think very quickly it's going to become apparent. Look, Andy Burnham's not going to solve the problems of the Labour Party. These are inherent. Their lack of their relationship with the working people has become profound since Tony Blair and onwards. He has recognised that the cost of living is a big concern, and many people are concerned with things like water and what's happening to it. But you have to have robust policies and growth and dynamic wealth creation and pulling back on taxes and allowing the market and entrepreneurs to invest. They're the key things. So many of our entrepreneurs are leaving the country. We've got to have that climate. That's not what he's...
And we need to realise this, Alan. I can tell you this. I've lived through eras of nationalisation. Nationalisation never, ever works. No company can be made better by government control. Even the worst kind of companies like Thames Water will be made worse if the government takes it over. Nationalisation does not work. Alan, on that bombshell, I've got to leave you. If I can just say thank you very much, Alan. Alan Miller there, who is the co-founder of the Together Declaration, on some of the chaos consuming Downing Street already. Next up, talking of which, we'll talk to Republican Overseas UK man Errol Moorcoach. We need to know what he thinks will happen now that Ed Miliband, Crazy Ed, is the Foreign Secretary. Already we're hearing the White House is less than thrilled. Well, it goes for quite a lot of us as well. Donald Trump, British people, all less than thrilled now that that madman is our Foreign Secretary. They say he can't do any much harm there. That's probably true, but he can make the special relationship even worse. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, Ed Miliband, they didn't know what to do about Crazy Ed. Burnham knew he had to get him off the net zero watch because he was ruining our economy and it was only going to get worse. Unfortunately, the person he's replaced Ed Miliband with is probably even more of an eco-nut zealot, but more of her later. Crazy Ed, Mad Miliband, absolute nutter, Britain's nutcase in chief, is now our Foreign Secretary, in effect our top diplomat, travelling the world, ruining the planet, you know, with jet fumes and all that, so he doesn't care about net zero anymore. Mind you, he travelled the world when he was net zero secretary, so he didn't care about it much then. However, he's now our chief diplomat. Around the world, that might be kind of okay, but it isn't going to be okay with Donald Trump. Donald Trump despises everything Ed Miliband stands for. You know, net zero, windmills, not drilling, solar panels, etc., etc. So it's going to be a disaster, make no mistake. Let's bring in my next guest. He's a spokesperson for the Republican Overseas Organisation, Errol Moorcoach. Welcome, Errol. Errol, before we talk, here is Ed Miliband, full of praise for your president. This is back in 2018. Here is Red Ed, Mad Miliband on Donald Trump.
Well, he actually said on this Piers Morgan interview, apparently, I saw the clip, I think, you know, I'm really popular in Britain. No, you're not. And I think it's very important that people, you know, show, you know, and what is objectionable about him? His racism, his misogyny, his incredibly peculiar relationship with Russia.
And the truth.
And the truth, most of all the truth. And, you know, who he is as a person. I mean, there's a line.
So, Errol, there you go. I mean, it's not rare amongst these overgrown sixth form activist Labour cabinet ministers that in their history they've got juvenile insults against Donald Trump. It's their hobby. They gain brownie points from their followers by saying, oh, Donald Trump's a racist, he's a sexist, he's a misogynist, vote for me. That's what they do. Now, Donald Trump is used to this sort of thing, but make no mistake, he'll bear this in mind. And I think that the relationship between Ed Miliband and Donald Trump is not likely to be a success. Miliband stands for everything that Trump despises. In fact, he stands for everything I despise, come to think of it. But you know, Donald Trump, windmills, solar farms, you know, not drilling, allowing your energy resources to be exploited by foreign countries but not yourself. I mean, Donald Trump thinks this is utter garbage. He's right. This Foreign Secretary is probably going to be worse for the special relationship than Keir Starmer was, and I don't say that lightly.
Oh, you know, absolutely. And to be so obtuse as the Labour government is, it's shocking that they would almost step on their own feet again after we already had that scandal with that last Mandelson fellow. Why not send somebody over in this context that would actually put a good foot forward with your closest ally, with probably the country that has a president that most wants to make trade deals with you, who wants to do all these things. Now, I will say this, to caveat, I mean, at least from the president's perspective, he won't be dealing with him as much as he will be dealing with the new prime minister. So, I mean, maybe that will create some space there, but I think Trump's going to seek him out, almost like a shark sensing blood in the water. The things that Miliband has said about him, it's unconscionable, it's, you know, counterfactual, and it's just it's plain slander. And to go on with that, you see all of a sudden when you get the big seat, then you start walking back the comments. Then he starts to say, oh, but I can work with people. Well, that's not how you really believe. And when you're a disingenuous person, it shows to your own constituents, and it's going to show across the pond to, you know, your American allies. And when it comes to things like North Sea drilling, that's, you know, global security from energy security, these kind of things, where you pick like certain things like the windmills, which Donald Trump and most people hate, and make those center policy. Well, all of that is actually just a Chinese psyop to have the Americans and Westerners buy their windmill and technology that they don't use there. Well, they have coal power plants. The president says this all the time. So ultimately, the question is, how much damage can the British people avoid having until you can replace the Labour government? And I think that's the real question.
Well, Donald Trump sent a good-hearted message to Andy Burnham. I believe they spoke on the phone yesterday as well, you know, wishing Andy Burnham Godspeed. But, you know, Donald Trump is under no delusions about this Prime Minister of ours who, you know, basically makes Lenin look like a moderate. I mean, this guy is extremely left-wing. He's going to take us back to the dark days of the 1970s. 70s. He thinks that was the golden age. I was there. It was a disaster. He just does not understand that. Now, the thing is, though, I don't know what they said in their conversation. I don't know what Donald Trump actually sent in his message or what Burnham has replied. But this is what Donald Trump expects. The White House has made it clear. Two things. One, they're dismayed by the appointment of Ed Miliband, and they warned against it. So you're right there, Errol. Very important. The White House sounded a warning to Burnham. Don't make that idiot your foreign secretary. Burnham's ignored the White House. That is not wise. That is not wise. Secondly, Donald Trump has made it clear that he expects Andy Burnham to let America, or to grant America, full use of our military bases in order to launch airstrikes on Iran as that war continues and actually gets worse. It would be a good move on Burnham's part if he said to Trump, listen, there's a new sheriff in town, you can use our air bases till the cows come home. But I bet he doesn't do that.
Well, yeah, and if he doesn't do that, it becomes not only a problem for the Americans, but say you're a British taxpayer, British citizen. The Iranians shot ballistic missiles at your property, Diego Garcia, and you called this, a belligerent action. No, it's an action of war. When they're shooting missiles at your bases in Cyprus and Greek ships are going there to try to offset it while you respond, it's not a good look. Now, the British military is very capable. The British Navy is very capable. Even if it's in its reduced capacity in the recent years, this is one of the most, virulent and successful fighting forces ever to be on the planet. And we're not even asking for any of the resources. We're just simply asking for the footholds that we've helped our allies secure throughout the last century to be used in this attack on an enemy that has for a very long time plagued the West and ultimately comes out of the fall of the British Empire and certain aspects there historically. So the idea that we'd have to ask is sort of bizarre to us, and that's why it doesn't play across the pond. Donald Trump should not have to be asking the British Prime Minister to be his ally in a war against Islamic fundamentalist Armageddon people, and that's why he said to the last gentleman, whose name is already in the dustbin, that he was no longer Churchill, or not Churchill. And I don't think this new guy is either, and that's the problem we have. I guess it's too hopeful to look for Churchill, but can we find somebody who's not just completely off the reservation? And I think that's where we are.
We haven't done that, Errol, I'm afraid. And if the Trump administration thought that it had, shall we say, political philosophical differences with Starmer's regime, they ain't seen nothing yet. This lot coming in. I mean, we have been subjected to a communist coup. That's what's happening. Donald Trump, I don't think quite understands quite how left-wing this lot are. In the words of the song, Errol, there may be trouble ahead. Good to talk to you, though, as always. That's Errol Moorcoach, spokesperson for the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London. Was that a good idea? By the way, I wanted to put this to you. A survey among Britain's motorists has revealed that Britain's worst motorway is the M27 in Hampshire, where there is apparently a 24/7 traffic jam where lots of roads intersect and so on and so on. The M27 in Hampshire is the worst motorway in Britain due to heavy traffic constantly. Do you agree with that? I mean, maybe if you live in Hampshire you do, but, I don't know if any of you are regular users of the M25, the circular motorway that goes around London, but I would put forward the M25 as the worst motorway in Britain every single day in the week. Do you have a nomination for what you think is the worst motorway in this country? Maybe you agree. Maybe it's the M27. Maybe you agree with me. It's the M25. What do you think? What's your worst motorway? 03444991000. You can ring up about that, or you can send us a text or a WhatsApp message. What's the worst motorway in Britain? Next up, we are going to talk about this business of the convicted criminal and the tax dodger in Andy Burnham's cabinet. I think it will cause problems. You can't have two politicians, senior politicians, in my view. One Prime Minister says, well, you've got to go. You've dodged the stamp duty. You can't stay. Says to the other one, oh, well, you know, I didn't know you were a convicted fraudster, phone fraudster. You've got to go. So you've got to go because I can't have these people in my cabinet. That's what Starmer said. In comes the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. Oh, I can have them in my cabinet. That's fine. Is it, though? Is it, though? What's changed apart from the man in charge? So do we now have a Prime Minister who doesn't really care about people who break the law or dodge tax? What's going on here? 03444991000. We'll talk about that and other aspects of the new cabinet when we return after these messages. Back in a mo.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. Nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go straight to Westminster and talk to the Sun's political correspondent, Tom Scottson. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. Will Andy Burnham live to regret appointing a convicted fraudster as his, in effect, his government enforcer? Louise Haigh, former Transport Secretary, sacked because of her criminal record. Now, apparently, that criminal record doesn't matter to the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. He's had to take one section of her brief away from her, which is responsibility for the Fraud Office, for obvious reasons. She's a convicted fraudster, so already this appointment is embarrassing. Meanwhile, we've got a stamp duty tax dodger who's been brought back as Housing Secretary, Angela Rayner. Doesn't he realise, Tom, doesn't the Prime Minister realise that people don't like this kind of thing? They prefer their Cabinet Secretaries not to be convicted criminals or tax dodgers.
Well, yes, so on the first appointment with Louise Haigh, so this is a really close ally of Andy Burnham, obviously a Sheffield MP, but someone whose relationship goes far back for them. She's kind of seen as like the first Secretary of State. So what Andy Burnham wants her to do in the Cabinet is the real enforcer. So this is to get through really tricky pieces of legislation across Whitehall. And when maybe, I don't know, the Energy Department and the Exchequer are really coming and butting heads, she's there to resolve this. So I guess that, yes, of course, you've said that she's a convicted fraudster. That came out in the press only last year, and she was forced to resign as Transport Secretary under Keir Starmer. But I feel that Andy Burnham had no choice but to appoint her. And the reason is, Kevin, is that Andy Burnham was looking for a route back into Parliament. He couldn't find one, and Louise Haigh was one of those.
Well, she facilitated it. She organised.
He was really crucial.
Yeah, it was incumbent upon him to give her a big job, but that puts a question mark over his judgment, doesn't it? It's not good to have a convicted fraudster in your office. Perennially, the responsibilities of the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster include presiding over the fraud office. She's had to have that taken away from her because she's a convicted fraudster. So already this appointment is looking ridiculous.
So Andy Burnham was probably toiling up, particularly with a lot of jobs, of where does he put someone like Louise Haigh? And I think he had this with also a couple of people as well. You look with Angela Rayner and also the newly appointed Annalise Midgley, not very well known outside Westminster, but put in the Chief Whip's office. And he thought, well, he can't put her back in transport again. He can't put her in more senior positions that were clearly divvied out and divided between much more senior politicians. So this seemed to be the only one. And I agree with you, Kevin, that is the slight embarrassment for it at the moment. But he's got to lean on someone that he trusts. Maybe not the public, but he trusts. And it's going to be a really crucial 3 years if he wants to defeat reform and come at the other end of an election with some sort of majority.
I agree with that, Thomas. That's a very good observation. But the story so far is everything Burnham has done, which isn't much, just delivered a few feel-good speeches, or a couple of feel-good speeches, has been aimed at the hardcore Labourites, Labour MPs, left-wing backbenchers, the new cabinet, etc. Nothing has been aimed at the public except for, I'm going to save you 86p a week on your energy bills. The rest is just for politicos in the Westminster bubble. He's going to have to raise his game a bit and start talking to us, the people, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And I feel that the first kind of couple of weeks, and particularly this first week, is really lent not just at media and the political class, but Labour MPs. He's tried to show them with someone like John Healey that he's got someone more of the moderate wing of the party. He's part of the old right. He's part of a group called Labour First, which, again, not well known outside of Westminster, but that group was created to really take on the old left in the 1980s. He shifted Ed Miliband to Foreign Secretary, so out of sight, out of mind. Someone has real power in the Labour backbenches, but hopefully won't be here for him to cause any trouble if things do go wrong for Mr. Burnham. But I think for the couple of next weeks, Kevin, what Mr. Burnham's going to try and do is really lean on this cost of living stuff, because I think that he sees that this is going to be the crucial issue now between him and Reform, him and the Conservatives, and this is where he can differentiate himself.
Yeah, and already, Tom, he's saved us 86p a week, so we're all cracking open the champagne with all that money we've saved. Interesting times, though, Tom. Thanks for coming on. Tom Scottson, political correspondent of The Sun there. I mean, seriously, let me know what you think about a convicted criminal, Louise Haigh, and a tax dodger, stamp duty dodger, Angela Rayner in the cabinet. Let me know. 03444991000. Philip Gisley next. Stick around.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We haven't heard anything from King Andy, our new communist supreme leader, who's staged the most incredible coup d'etat without even being bothered by a hint of democracy. He's now our Prime Minister. We haven't had a word from this messiah without a mandate, the member for Makerfield, about the migrant crisis, you know, immigration, the issue that concerns the people of this country more than anything else. If he wants to know, the issue that concerns them the least is his obsession, devolution. Nobody gives a rat's backside about there being 1 million more mayors or whatever he wants to create. He has this handy knack of zoning in on what people don't care about and not zoning in on what they really care about. So in 20 minutes or so, half an hour or so, we're going to talk about the latest absurdity. An Eritrean migrant who turned up with a protruding Adam's apple, a beard, 5 o'clock shadow, deep voice, and has been ruled by a ludicrous immigration tribunal judge as a child. In his summary, saying, yes, he was definitely 16 when he turned up, this judge says he's proud of his beard. He's very proud of his beard. Oh, shut up, you ridiculous little man. It's absurd, absurd. So we've had to give this guy £10,000 to pay for his legal costs because a judge says he was a child despite having a very deep voice, 5 o'clock shadow and a protruding Adam's apple. This is the kind of nonsense that Andy Burnham should stamp on, get rid of. We've had enough. But we don't know whether he's going to do that or not, do we? Because he hasn't said a damn word about the issue that people care about more than any other issues in this country. That is the migrant crisis. Not a dicky bird. Come on, Burnham, say something. 03444991000. That in about half an hour. But first, let's go over to my next guest, go through some of the big stories of the day with Senior Fellow for the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, Kev. How you doing? OK.
I'm all right. Welcome to Burnham's Britain. We've been subjected to a communist takeover. This is a coup d'etat. It's extraordinary. And I think the worst thing about this is this guy gets in, not once bothered by even a hint of democracy, just waltzes into Downing Street and then announces, I'm going to give you the biggest, shift, a huge lurch left in 40 years. 40 years of neoliberalism will be scrapped. In other words, what he means by that is rather successful free market liberalism. He wants to get rid of that. He wants state control over absolutely everything. A return to the disaster that was 1970s Labour, old school socialism. Everything about what he is doing, I think, is profoundly wrong, but it's also massive. And then there's that little matter of the fact that this massive change that he now promises us, or I should say warns us of, was not in Labour's manifesto. This is an assault on democracy, isn't it?
Well, it really is, and if you stop to think about what's happened, that's bad enough. But if you project a little bit into the near future, well, we've got the summer recess, so he really isn't going to be held to account for any of this stuff. Then it's kind of conference season, so he's going to be well with his feet under the table before anybody really starts to pick apart what he's done. So I'm really concerned that he's going to get pretty much a free ride for the next 3 months, apart from people like you and me and this channel. It just seems, I think Harry Cole shared something, was it this morning or yesterday, and it was the BBC.
Oh, the BBC website, which was like a massive, isn't Andy wonderful? Andy's next brilliant move. Where Andy was brilliant in the past, where he's going to be brilliant in the future. The BBC is lost in Burnham Loveland, isn't it?
But that is so so concerning because what you just said, you know, where is the scrutiny here? Where is the criticism? You know, where is the kind of the pulling apart event by event, hour by hour almost, of how he got here and what that means for us, what that means for democracy and what that means for the future? It feels as though there is just this massive love-in, and it is just so embarrassing because the man gets more embarrassing by the day. But the problem is, it's as you've just said, this is the most radical agenda, but it's a radical agenda that's grounded in utter stupidity, as radical agendas tend to be. but if you think about it, the first thing he said was, I'm going to deal with homelessness. Well, you can't just deal with homelessness, or I'm going to build more council houses. There's no way you could possibly...
I've got to put you right there, Philip. He just quickly slipped in at the end of his Downing Street speech, by the way, proving emphatically just how different he's going to be. He didn't have a lectern. Amazing! Delivered about a 5-minute speech, and all the Labourites are going, absolutely astounding, no notes. When he delivered his speech last week, he looked at his notes 226 times in about 30 minutes. So this guy is no Winston Churchill when it comes to oratory. But you just slipped in at the end. Oh, by the way, I'll end rough sleeping. 340 million quid. This is going to be a thing, I think. He's going to end speeches. Yeah, by the way, I'll cure cancer within a month. You know, it's just nonsense, nonsense.
It was that kind of thing, but he did it in a way that, right, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to end rough sleep. I'm going to go into the house now and end rough sleeping.
I'll just sign it off.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at Manchester, I think rough sleeping has doubled in Manchester over his tenure as leader of the city.
Yeah, but Philip, the buses run on time.
I know. It's like
Come on.
Isn't it?
Every time you suggest maybe Burnham is an empty vessel who's never really achieved anything in politics, which is true, people say, what about the buses in Manchester? Oh, great, your entire legacy is you created a couple of buses in Manchester. Fantastic.
But because no one can afford cars. But one of the key things here, it's not about the source. It's all about the symptoms. It really, you know, you've got to really deal with what's making this stuff happen. And we have mass immigration. The one thing, as you just said, the one major thing that everybody is concerned about. I have people coming up to me in the street and saying, can you talk about this on Talk? Can you talk about this on the channels that you go onto? We're massively concerned about it. Nothing about that. And if you think about homelessness, if you think about what's driving homelessness, mass immigration is one of those things. The fact that the economy is in the toilet is one of those things. The fact that people are worried to set up businesses, the fact that, you know, housing is just such a massive issue, all of those things. He isn't going to deal with those things. You can't deal with the private renting sector by putting rent control on it. It's going to make it 10 times worse. And what you definitely can't do is just build a few council houses and say, there, I've solved it. Now, this is the key thing. He has no answers. It's all gimmick, and it's all just trying to placate people, trying to placate all of the people all of the time. And it just won't work. It's going to fall apart. But as I said at the beginning of this, my key worry is that people aren't going to give him the scrutiny, apart from one or two people, the scrutiny he deserves, and he's going to get away with it for such a long time that we really are going to be in chaos in 6 months.
And he deals in impossible platitudes. You know, politics. He says, we're going to get rid of factionalism in Westminster. Factionalism does not work, and I'm going to jettison it. There'll be no factionalism in my government. He then sacks the entire Starmer faction from the cabinet and brings in the Burnham faction. Talking about no factionalism in politics is like talking about playing football without a ball. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's just empty platitudes, kumbaya, sound good, but politics is factionalism. End of story. There's nothing you can ever do about that. He proved that yesterday.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's not really. I think that was not really even about his own party. He's worried about Kemi Badenoch because she's pretty. She goes for the throat, doesn't she? And I think that's a fantastic thing that she does. So I think he will not be able to stand up to her at PMQs. I think she'll make mincemeat out of him. So he's now talking about politics as a collaborative enterprise. You know what? It really isn't. Big parties struggle to collaborate on their own. What I don't want is a Labour Party trying to collaborate with the opposition. That really isn't going to work. So all of this stuff is just going to fall down like the empty house of cards it is. He is, I think someone called him the other day, I think it was Jeremy Kyle actually, called him vacuous. And that really describes him. I've called him vacuous before. He is a shallow man. He is someone who is at home running.
I think you're being slightly unfair to him, Philip. We haven't seen all of the man yet, but I do believe he's already showing signs that he's full. Andy Burnham is full of hidden shallows. Let's talk, shall we, about, I've discussed at some length whether or not it's a good idea for him to appoint to his cabinet a convicted fraudster, Louise Haigh, and a stamp duty tax dodger, Angela Rayner, going back to her housing remit, so at least we know no houses will get built. She'll resume her programme of not building any houses. And by the way, neither of these women have ever proved they're any good at anything, but there you are, that's a different issue. Let's talk about, though, we've also dealt with the folly of Ed Miliband as Foreign Secretary. He's not going to do any good to our special relationship with America, but in the end, Foreign Secretaries don't really matter much. They don't do that much. So I suppose he's getting him out of harm's way in that role. Let's talk, though, about who he has replaced Ed Miliband with on the Net Zero Watch. The new Net Zero Secretary is legendary, massive name in her own house, Miata Farnbula, and she basically is a hard-left globalist climate change zealot. She's going to make Ed Miliband look like a moderate. She's a former head of something called the New Economics Foundation, and that is an organisation that campaigned for Britain to have a Green New Deal, including spending 2% of our GDP, gross domestic product, on net zero climate policies. She pushed for companies to transfer ownership into worker control funds, didn't want people who created the companies to run them, wanted the employees to run them, and so on and so forth. She's going to be worse than Ed.
Yeah, she's the stuff of nightmares. You don't want zealots or extremists anywhere near government and net zero. You just don't want net zero anywhere near government. You certainly don't want a cabinet minister dealing with it. Let's just bear in mind that 50 years ago we were talking about global freezing. Now we really were, and that was the big worry. Oh, everything's getting cooler. It's global freezing. Now we're fully bought into global warming. Young people are absolutely indoctrinated into this cult, and the whole country is geared to spending billions and billions and billions. Don't forget our utility bills. A good proportion of our utility bills, that a lot of that goes to green research. So if you have an extreme left wing, I would call her a nutter, an extreme left-wing nutter. Seriously, I mean, we do have to be serious about this.
Yeah.
And you were saying that, okay, I was being a bit harsh on Andy Burnham before. Well, I was just thinking about his record in Manchester, Kev, getting clearer by the day, and it's a really terrible record. But also, in terms of just who he's appointed, who's taken away, I expect him to take away all the Starmer people. But, who he's appointed, this particular appointment is really, really worrying, because see any control on her, and I see everybody around her egging her on, and I think this is going to be catastrophic for us economically, and I think it's going to make us look stupid on the world stage.
It will signal no let-up whatsoever in Ed Miliband's crazed windmill and solar panels campaign. We are going to go further down the net zero route to desolation road, trust me. She's going to make it even worse. Let me ask you another question about another appointment. Wes Streeting is a Defence Secretary. It strikes me that what happened here was, you know, Andy basically threw the cards up in the air. Where would they land? Oh, what are we going to do with West then? What have we still got around? Oh, yeah, we offered defence to Rachel Reeves, but she turned it down. Should we give defence to Wes? Yeah, let's give it to Wes. Now, you know, I've got nothing against Wes Streeting. He made the usual mess of the NHS, like all health secretaries do, but he can't be blamed for that. Nobody can deal with that basket case. But on earth, what the hell does Wes Streeting know about defence? What in his life, his political history, in his career, indicates any interest in defence? What is this appointment?
I know this is the craziest one of all, really, isn't it? It's like taking me and saying, right, you're going to be the minister for trans. You know, it just seems.
I like the idea of that.
Well, yeah, well, maybe I should be. You know, maybe I bring some sense to the whole debate. Yeah. But it just feels as though, you know, what does he know? As you say, what does he know about defence? The only thing I know about him, that he has no interest in defence and wants to bring the spending down, or at least he did whenever he talked about defence. You know, when there was that moment that he was in the running for the leadership, he wasn't interested in defence. He wasn't interested in borders. He wasn't interested in all the things that we're interested in. So it will be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see this. I mean, oh God, just look at him. Look at his washed little face there. It'd be interesting to see him with squaddies, him with paratroopers. You know, how is he going to deal with those people? How is he going to talk to them on a level that they understand? How are they going to communicate with him? This seems to be like the bizarrest appointment out of.
It really is.
But you know, let me just finish the point, because I think it's really important. The one thing we desperately know, and we've talked about this several times, is that we are going into uncharted territory in the 21st century where defence is going to be massively, massively, massively important. Now, it's just been thrown away for the last 30 years. Culturally, everybody, you know, the elites have looked down on the army, have looked down on squaddies, and that has been catastrophic to them. There are so many homeless ex-squaddies out there. But what we have now is a person who represents all of that stuff, that negativity towards the armed forces. Now he's in charge of the military. So again, I really worry, and I keep coming back to the same thing. I keep reading all of this stuff, all of these appointments, everything that Andy Burnham says. First of all, I'm bemused, okay? Then I get a little bit angry, and then I'm frightened, and everything he says solicits that response in me. And I don't think I'm the only one. I think there's a lot of people out there who feel exactly the same, and it feels like we're on the edge of a precipice, and God help us in 6 months' time.
OK, last question, Philip. What can be done to persuade our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, to stop doing this? I mean, please. I mean, do anything you like, Andy, but don't do this. You're not the Dalai Lama. It's just so annoying, isn't it?
Well, you know, you're coming out with the most difficult question. How can I stop a complete narcissist with faux humbleness?
Yeah, that's right. Faux humility, isn't it? Yeah.
Going
I'm
like
so,
this.
I'm so humble. He's the least humble person in Britain.
Oh yeah, it is ridiculous. I just point viewers to Russell Kane's impression of him. Actually, if anybody's not seen it,
I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Oh, they're absolutely fantastic, because he is just the guy is just hilarious as Andy Burnham. Please do watch that.
I hope that this is my hope for the near future. It's this, that Andy Burnham turns out to be not as thick as he seems to be. Yeah. He's selling himself as a sort of political moron. With no, there he is. Look at it. Shut up! Stop it! Yeah, he's selling himself as a political moron with no imagination whatsoever. I just hope he's not quite as stupid as that, but then again, he probably is. Philip, great to have you on the show as always. It's always terrific to have you as a guest. Philip Kisley, their senior fellow from the New Culture Forum. Next up, we're going to go to the issue that Andy Burnham doesn't seem to like to talk about. We're going to focus in on the police, two-tier policing, two-tier justice. Shocking case. This was actually Keir Starmer departing his sign-off. He departed as he arrived, an enthusiastic sponsor of two-tier justice. Shocking case over the last week or so. Where him and the Home Secretary droning on about, oh, this is far-right terrorist plot trying to kill Muslims. We will not tolerate this magnificent police investigation. We've arrested all the culprits. In other words, speculating when the legal process hadn't even started. That's what they keep telling us we can't do. Don't you dare speculate about the murder of Anne Widdecombe. Don't do that. Don't speculate. Oh, we can speculate, though, because we're the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. We're coppers. We can speculate, but you little people can't. You can go to hell. I'll speculate if I want to. But I will give you an egregious example of the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary last week speculating about a legal case, a law situation about which they knew nothing. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about two-tier justice now. Two-tier Keir leaving government, ceasing to be the Prime Minister, signing off with a classic, huge dollop of two-tier justice. Absolutely disgraceful. So, in the studio is former Met Police Detective Mike Neville. Welcome, Mike. And this case concerns an alleged, Mike, far-right terrorist plot against Muslims. The Prime Minister last week and the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, weighing in with speedy statements, praising the brilliance of a police investigation, saving lives, how they will not tolerate threats to the Muslim community. The event was a UK Ijtima event at Shrubland Hall in Suffolk last week. 15,000 Muslims were in attendance. That had to come to an early end amid this scare that there was a terrorist threat against this event. So everyone was sent home. 12 people were arrested. The Prime Minister immediately, fairly swiftly tweeted shocking news that counter-terrorism police are investigating a credible serious threat targeted at an Islamic event in Suffolk. Thanks to the quick action taken by the police and the organisers, nobody was hurt. My message is clear. I will not tolerate any attacks on our Muslim communities or any form of anti-Muslim hatred. That's pursuing the Muslim vote, folks. And here's Shabana Mahmood. My thanks to the terrorism police for their swift work in apprehending a boy who is allegedly planned to target 2 mosques in South London, blah, blah, blah. I know how concerning this will be to the Muslim community just days after a foiled attack at an Islamic festival in Suffolk. There was no terrorist plot. All 12 of the people who were arrested have not been charged with terrorism or plotting in any way to harm those 15,000 Muslims who went to that event in Suffolk at Shrubland Hall. So utter codswallop. And yet we have the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary immediately, straight out of the traps. Fantastic, well done, you've saved the Muslims. Meanwhile, they're telling us, don't you dare say anything about Anne Widdecombe, you know, because...
Don't speculate.
Don't speculate. The legal process has started. One rule for them, another for us.
It's all the time, isn't it? And you can almost see with Anne Widdecombe, you could see the senior officers in particular and the politicians telling us not to speculate, not to see this as, you know, an attack on a well-known politician of the right. Well, we can't speculate. This might be terrorism of any kind. And as you say, what I believe happened with this Muslim event was a drone was flown over it, something like that. But the way that they leap out and they put all these tweets out, they put all this information out, and they do exactly opposite as what they tell anybody to do if the victim is of any nature right-wing. And it just shows, it just proves their own case against them.
Yeah, I know. You know, they were absolutely scolding us for daring to talk amongst ourselves about Anne Widdecombe. You know, that's a human instinct. By the way, it has come out of that case without speculating at all, because the suspect has been charged. But some of the information that's come out of that case was that poor Anne was struck 21 times on the head. 21 times, which is shocking. But to go back to this Suffolk case, Commander Helen Flanagan, who's the head of counter-terrorism police in London, said, "This has been a fast-moving investigation after we became aware of information to indicate there was a potential threat towards the Islamic event over the course of last weekend, blah, blah, blah. Since then, we have made extensive inquiries, but at this time, we have found no evidence to support anyone being charged with any offences linked to the alleged threat." So it was a load of crap.
It was a load of rubbish. And what we see again is that they release this information, who they've arrested. We say, like, it's when the Huntingdon stabbing occurred. It took them 18 hours to say it was a black suspect. When it's other times, it's easy to say it's within an hour we're told it's a white suspect. And all the time the public are getting this information, and every time they lose trust and confidence in policing, in the government. They're told not to speculate. An old lady gets killed, well, but obviously people are going to start thinking, well, what about my mother, my grandmother, my aunt and all this? Who's being targeted here? What about who for their beliefs? And then Nigel Farage, of course, he mentions it could be an attack on Anne Widdecombe because of her political beliefs, and everybody castigates him. They're all setting him, it's like a pile-on onto Nigel Farage, criticising him, and of course what happens in the end? He is right, and none of them apologise, they just let it go on.
Yeah, we can't really attack Cold Starmer anymore because he hasn't got the job, but it was a classic way for Keir Starmer to leave his job as Prime Minister of this country as he began enthusiastically sponsoring and supporting two-tier justice. Absolute disgrace. Zia Youssef, on behalf of Reform UK, has tweeted how furious they are because, of course, Reform UK, Nigel Farage and the gang were severely criticised for speculating that Anne Widdecombe was the victim, potentially, of a politically motivated assassination. No, you can't speculate. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
So the other thing as well...
And they were right. And they were right.
I know they politicise these things. So when Joe Cox was murdered, they felt entitled to politicise that.
Blame Brexit immediately.
Exactly. Anybody brought in Brexit was to blame for that. So David Amos gets killed, and there's nothing about it. It's just all covered up and forgotten. It's only politicised if it's a left-wing victim.
Indeed. Let me know what you think about that. The Islamic terrorism plot, or the terrorist plot against Islamic people, against Muslims in Suffolk. There was no such thing, and yet 12 people were arrested. Police crowing about, we've foiled this massive plot. The Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, oh, fantastic, you've saved all these lives, what a marvellous investigation. Absolute garbage. There was no terrorism plot. They had to release everyone without charge. I mean, 4 of them got other charges, but nothing to do with terrorism or a plot to harm Muslims at this event. That's a disgrace. That's a disgrace. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. And in the meantime, don't you dare speculate about Anne Widdecombe. You have been told. Seriously, let's move on to another issue I want to get your thoughts on, Mike. This is another disgrace. Do you remember that lying, hopeless West Midlands police chief, Craig Guilford, who lied to the public, lied to Parliament about why he banned Jews from attending the Europa League match between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv? I think it was last October. He was such a liar, such a squirmer, that he had to retire. He was forced to retire as the West Midlands police chief because, frankly, he just didn't tell the truth to Parliament. You can't do that. You can't lie to Parliament and get away with it, which he didn't. So he said, right, Craig, well, you know, you've been screwing up your useless career for a long time. Why don't you just bugger off with your pension? He's now received £57,800 as a payout. A reward for lying, for disgracefully banning Jews from supporting their football team. What is going on? Why has he got that money?
Well, he got it because what they're saying, the Police and Crime Commissioner, who's very left-wing in the West Midlands, is that that's what he was entitled to, the 3 months. But what we see again is a senior officer simply slithering away with all that money. And if this was what I always saw in the police... Yeah, slithering is a good word.
It is a good word.
If it was a junior officer who'd done all that, they would be sacked, disciplined, out they'd go. And it is, again, two-tier, that a certain type of people, they get one form of justice, the senior officers, allowed to just slip away. A detective sergeant, a police constable, they'd be hounded out, gross misconduct, and flung out without any money. And people say, and that money is on top of the salary he receives. He receives, like, a good old whack, you know, 200 grand.
220 grand.
Absolutely, a massive salary as well. So he's not going to be wanting. And do you know what? It's a bit like the NHS. You see these people in the NHS failing one hospital, they go to another hospital, fail there, fail. He'll be back. There's no reason why he couldn't return with all that money in his back pocket.
Yeah, Andy Burnham says he wants a new kind of Britain. People are disgusted by this. What we want is accountability. That little man lied to try to save his own backside. He seemed to think that his job as West Midlands police chief was to do exactly what he was told by the local Islamic activists. That, you know, he did what they told him to do. And that's what he thought his job was. And he lied to try to get out of that. He lied to the public, and then he lied to Parliament. And what the public would like was for this country to turn around and say, sorry, Craig, old buster, you cannot lie to Parliament, therefore you're not going to get a penny. That would be a more sensible system.
And in the scheme of things, the people who live in the West Midlands, second city Birmingham, are getting a poor service. The police force he ran, again, requires improvement in investigating crime. Instead of getting the basics right, preventing and detecting crime, what we get is a lot of political mumbo-jumbo, appeasing people who are self-appointed community leaders who are never voted in, all politically correct. And as a result, everybody, whether you're white or black, Christian, Muslim or Sikh or whatever, you're let down because when your house gets burgled, your wife gets attacked, your children have their phone robbed, whatever happens, you don't get a proper service. Get back to basics, forget all this nonsense and get to dealing with crime.
Yeah, and understand this, Mr. Guilford, or any other police chiefs out there. If Jewish football fans want to attend a match to support their team, it's your job to facilitate them in that endeavour. That is a legal right of those fans to support their team. The police's job is to allow them to do that, not ban them. That ban bordered on anti-Semitism. It was certainly wrong. Morally and righteously, it was just wrong. It was a disgusting decision. Even Keir Starmer said so. So Craig Guilford, why has he got £57,800 as a payoff for lying to Parliament and lying to the public, for doing what the local Islamic extremists told him, for misunderstanding what his job was? Why? Why no accountability? Why reward him for this disgraceful pursuance of his duty in the last few months of his hopeless regime? Mike Neville, thank you so much for coming in. Next up, we're going to go back to the migrant crisis. We've got a very egregious case of an Eritrean migrant who was ruled to be a child by a court despite having a protruding Adam's apple deep voice and here's the doozy, a beard. And the judge said he's very proud of his beard. Yeah, judge, but it doesn't mean he's a kid, does it, you idiot? I'm so sick of these people. Get me out of this country. It has gone insane. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to my next guest. He is the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Welcome, Robert.
Evening, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on the show. Obviously, we await with bated breath our new Lord and Master, King Andy Burnham's first declaration on the migrant crisis, on immigration, for so far not a word from him on the issue that concerns the people of this country the most. He's obsessed, by the way, with the issue that concerns the people of this country the least. In a list of priorities of British voters, the one at the very bottom, the one at the top was the migrant crisis, then the economy, cost of living. The one at the very bottom, like about 58th position, was devolution, more mayors. Nobody gives a rat's backside. That's his big priority. Thanks, Andy. Now, what we do want, though, potentially, is the spectre of common sense returning or arriving on the patch of the migration crisis, the migrant crisis. We've got another one of these cases. Did a case yesterday, Robert, about a drug dealer from Albania who did 3 years, was deported. 1 month later, snuck back into the country on the back of a lorry. That was in 2018, and this week he's been allowed to stay forever because to deport him back to Albania would apparently breach the human rights of his wife. So there you are, that is a good one there. Here's another one. An Eritrean migrant with a protruding Adam's apple and a 5 o'clock shadow and a very deep voice is a child. An immigration tribunal court has revealed. He changed his date of birth 5 times and was stopped from illegally entering Britain on multiple occasions. He kept trying to get across, kept getting stopped. He eventually smuggled himself into the country by hiding in the back of a lorry in February 2024. Immigration officials ruled him to be much older than 18. Wrinkles under his eyes, 5 o'clock shadow, the inconsistencies in the dates of birth he kept giving, his protruding Adam's apple. That would mean he was not entitled to the statutory benefits of being a child. Anyway, he's appealed. He's gone to an immigration hearing in Hillingdon, where you'll never guess what, the judge has decided that, in fact, when he arrived, he was a child. The judge's comments, he's a guy called Gaynor Bruce. I assume that's a guy. He said he, despite his appearance, this guy had been sincere and cooperative. I have given careful consideration to the evidence about the applicant's appearance. I do not agree that he has a receding hairline or deep lines in his face. I could not say whether the Adam's apple of someone born in 2007 is likely to be significantly less pronounced than someone born in 2005. Well, why don't you find out then? That might be an idea, wouldn't it? I do accept that the applicant has a... This is the funny bit. I do accept that the applicant has a small, neat beard and one that he sports quite proudly. He has used it as his Snapchat avatar and came to court with it clearly groomed. He told me he likes his beard, and that is quite plainly the case. The rate of growth of facial hair in Eritrean males was not something about which I have received specialist expert advice. Well, get specialist expert advice. This is absolute nonsense. What is this stupid judge talking about?
It is unbelievable that our sort of border policies when it comes to age disputes are so ridiculous. They're so far behind the rest of Europe that effectively we end up with these kind of decisions being based on the judge's own ignorance, as she willfully admits, and her weird fascination with the bloke's beard. And I think actually this is a large part of the problem, that we don't have expertise when it comes to these kind of questions. Instead, we allow it to be really in the hands of these immigration tribunal judges. And as we all know, a lot of them are very, very left-wing. This one in particular has a real track record, a real doozy when it comes to sort of outlandish decisions. She's allowed the sort of nephew of a Taliban commander previously to bring over family members. She's allowed a drug dealer to stay in the country because his stepdaughter was undergoing gender reassignment surgery. So this is an individual that is clearly making decisions on what's best for Britain rather than actually her own ideological fancies. And of course, she has also got a background in campaigning for open borders. And this is the real problem, as we've talked about previously with the immigration tribunal system, is there's very little oversight. It's not really done on any basis of law, or in the case of age disputes, on science. We don't use any sort of testing of dental checks or so forth like a lot of Europe. And instead it is just up to the whims and the fancies of individuals that probably hate this country. I think this individual's track record, her history, her experience suggests she loathes the very idea of Britain and is very happy for our borders to continue to be abused in the manner that this individual in particular 4 or 5 times trying to break into the country before effectively being allowed to stay, are showing for it.
Why don't, Shabana Mahmood, who I think gets far too much praise for being a hardline, tough as nails Home Secretary who's really cracked down on the migrant crisis? No, she hasn't. She's brought sort of slight tenets of common sense to some situations. But this nonsense in the courts continues apace. As I said yesterday, we covered the case of a drug dealer who came to the country in about 2016 illegally. Got a 3-year jail sentence for drug dealing, was deported back to Albania, sneaked back into the country illegally on the back of a lorry. That was in 2018. So here illegally, having come in illegally, having thwarted a deportation, has been allowed to stay in the country for the preceding 6 years, fighting, or 8 years, isn't it, fighting that case. And this week it was decided in the tribunal, immigration tribunal courts, that he can stay forever because to deport him back to Albania would be breach the human rights of his partner, his wife. This is the nonsense we've got to get to grips with if we're to be regarded as serious in our efforts to do something about this scourge in our midst. And yet you see no signs of any of these judges being told to be sensible. You see no signs of these courts ever making sensible decisions. It continues apace and we're in a mess.
It is bordering on vandalism at this point. And some of the rulings that these immigration tribunal judges are making, and the fact that they're being allowed to, because we do remain within the apparatus of human rights framework. And of course, one of the things that make people think Shabana Mahmood is a hardliner is the fact that she's talked about reforming and overhauling the application of the ECHR and then actually taking steps to increase the deportations. Well, that was the headline. That's what she said. But the measures themselves are lukewarm. They're political gestures. There's no legal basis for that. There's been no sort of sitting all the judges down and staring them in the eye and saying very clearly, you're going to implement the human rights law in a much different way. Again, she grabs the headlines. She's, I think, relishing somewhat this sort of status as being a migration hardliner, which she is inexplicably being described as. But in reality, actually, what we are seeing is the continuation of problems that have now been plaguing the country for many, many years, but have been reaching a crescendo roar in the last few years. And I think, unfortunately, as she's now been reappointed, the smoke and mirrors that she's very, very fond of deploying will continue. All the while, a myriad of these kind of rulings continue to inflict on us drug dealers, murderers and so forth, who just simply can't be removed. And the pull factor for those that want to come in illegally, whether that be small boats or whether that be in the back of lorries or whether that be overstaying visas, continues to be greater and greater.
It's just ridiculous. And I'm afraid that under Burnham, Shabana Mahmood doesn't want to leave the ECHR. Burnham certainly doesn't. And as long as we're in the ECHR, we can't even begin to solve this crisis. To leave the ECHR would be the first step. It certainly wouldn't solve all our problems, but we have to leave the ECHR to begin to address the problems, and yet this government doesn't want to. So our migrant crisis will not only stay with us, it will get worse, 100%. Robert, great to have you on the show as always. Thank you very much for your time. Robert Bates, Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control there. Going to take some of your calls after this break, so get on the phone, let me know. 03444991000. What do you think of his new cabinet? What do you think of crazy Ed Miliband becoming our Foreign Secretary? How's that going to go down in the White House? We already know how it's gone down in the White House, like a cup of cold sick. They're not at all pleased. Why appoint a man who antagonises Donald Trump to the job of Foreign Secretary? It's almost like appointing a paedophile's best friend, to be the ambassador to Washington, isn't it? You know, there's a sort of pattern emerging here, don't you think? All of that, let me know what you think about that, what you think about net zero. It's going to get worse. What do you think about this new cabinet? What do you think about King Andy? Is he ever going to say anything of any substance? I don't know. Let me know. 03444991000. And to paraphrase Labour, folks, let's face it, things can only get worse. Back in a mo, stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's listen to a quick voice note, shall we? This is from Ian, and it is on Andy Burnham.
On point today, your show. I'm looking at Andy Burnham, and I see smoke and mirrors and eyebrows. He's getting by on that initial bounce of, I'm not Starmer, I'm a charmer. Do you remember when Starmer came in? He got by on the initial bounce of not being the Tories, but then you've actually got to do something. I want him to do something. I want him to improve this country. But I think the more we see him, the smugger he's going to be, and the less action we're going to get. Nothing on climate change, nothing on immigration, the expensive things. We'll give him a chance, but I think the eyebrows are going to fail.
I think, sadly, Ian, you were right. I mean, you know, I do wish Andy Burnham well. I hope he's a great Prime Minister. I hope he makes this country great again. But I don't see any signs of that whatsoever. I think he's going to make it even worse than Starmer. As I said yesterday, within, I'd say, about a couple of weeks, we will get misty-eyed with nostalgia for the good old days of Keir Starmer. We really will. This guy... Yeah, I can't believe it. I don't think people are making enough of this. This guy wants to take us back to the 1970s. He wasn't really there. He was just a little boy. You had to be there. It was a tragedy, the 1970s. This country was brought to its knees. You don't know how bad it was unless you were there. It was dreadful from start to finish. Seriously. And he wants to go back there. He thinks that was the great decade. Do me a favour. Quick text here. This is from Patrick in Kent. How does Streeting move from saving lives to killing people, from health to defence? Yeah, that's interesting. Of course he can't. That's politics. Just seen Burnham in Cabinet. He looks so nervous and unsure. I don't know if he's unsure. I don't know if he's nervous, but he's unprepared. That's for damn sure. Let's talk to Grace in Ealing. Hello, Grace. You don't think we should worry too much about what Trump thinks about the new Foreign Secretary, Ed Miliband?
No, not particularly. I'd say, first of all, Andy Burnham doesn't have particularly striking eyebrows. It's his eyelashes that are quite striking, contrary to your previous...
I've never noticed them, to be honest with you. They keep going on about them, but I don't see them. But anyway...
I think that as much as, obviously, the Iranian regime is completely heinous and evil. That doesn't necessarily mean, as was suggested by your earlier guest, that our leadership should necessarily do whatever Trump demands. I think that Trump kind of has in his mind, and he has supporters telling him this, that in the great Armageddon battle, your guest mentioned Armageddon, that God will be on Trump's side because he's opposing Muslims, but that's not exactly
He might oppose those tyrannical old mad mullahs of Iran who are just mass murderers. They're not proper Muslims. They're just tyrannical killers. So I think God would not be on their side. But don't you think, though, Grace, that, look, the defence of Britain, integral to the defence of Britain, is our close relationship with America. America being able to protect us is part of our defence policy. So don't you think we should pay a lot of attention to what or who Donald Trump might like? He's not going to like Ed Miliband. I think it's an antagonistic appointment that we shouldn't have made.
I think what I'm saying is that God isn't simply on one side or the other, and the problem is that because
he sits
Trump
on the fence, doesn't he?
Well, he calls all of us.
He's a shocking fence sitter, that God, isn't he?
He calls all of us to repent, and he obviously hates what the Iranian regime is doing. But that doesn't mean that Trump can just do whatever he likes and necessarily.
Yeah, but we should endeavour to please Donald Trump with the appointments we make in terms of jobs that have a lot to do with America. For example, Foreign Secretary. For example, Ambassador to America. We haven't been very good in that respect, have we?
I think my concern is that if we just have leadership, as in our government, who just rolls over and does whatever Trump wants, that might not be ideal at the end of the day either. We probably need leadership that looks a bit more strategically at the best way of quelling the conflict, whereas Trump has been kind of exacerbating the conflict.
We don't really have much of a say in whether or not the Iran war continues or stops or anything. We're not in it, are we? It's nothing to do with us. So we can pay lip service to, oh, isn't it awful? But we're just nothing to that.
Well, I think, again, if we just have leadership that fawns over Trump and does whatever he likes, it might not be the best way of bringing the conflict to an end.
Well, we are not going to play any part in either the continuance or the end of the Iran war. Let's not kid ourselves. And I think we should pay a lot of attention to the appointments we make of people who are going to have to deal with Donald Trump. We haven't done it with Ed Miliband. Maybe Ed can do a good job, who knows? Pigs might fly, but I'm not optimistic about this. Grace, got to go. Good call, though, as always. Back in a minute. Stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In 20 minutes or so, we're going to go live to Los Angeles to talk to our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, about the latest goings-on on Planet Harry and Meghan. Harry apparently now regrets Megxit, regrets leaving Britain all those years ago, wants to come back, wants to reforge links with his family. Trouble is, they don't want to know. So it's all going wrong there. Also, Harry senses, apparently, that Americans have fallen out of love with him. The Americans don't like him. Well, Harry, it's not just Americans, it's all of us. Nobody likes you. Maybe Meghan does, but I think that's about the end of the story. We'll talk to Kinsey in a little while, but in the meantime, let's go over to my next guest, former Tory government special advisor, James Price. Welcome, James.
Hello, my friend.
Good to have you on the show, as always. And perhaps we can both sort of metaphorically chink a glass of champagne now that Andy Burnham has dispensed with factionalism in Westminster. No more factionalism. Yesterday he fired the entire faction of Starmer's cabinet and replaced them with his faction of cabinet ministers. He has not replaced factionalism. He has carried it on, hasn't he? Because, frankly, saying, I'll get rid of factionalism, that's ridiculous. Basically, factionalism is politics. Another one of his airy-fairy, kumbaya statements that actually don't hold water.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, mate. I think that all these people that keep saying on the left, Andy Burnham is a great communicator, I just don't understand it. He speaks almost entirely in vibes and meaningless platitudes. What is factionalism in a political party? It's people having a set of beliefs about things. And the Labour Party has long since, excuse me, I think abandoned having deep beliefs about what's good for the country. It's only about what's good for their own little collective groups, whether it's the trade unions or whether it's sort of mad identity groups or something else. And so the kind of factionalism that he's talking about is exactly that. And you're never going to end that, because those were all the people who were knifing Keir Starmer for the last couple of months, if not outright years, because we know that Burnham's sort of de facto deputy has admitted they've been plotting this for a year. That would be convicted fraudster and now first Secretary of State Louise Haigh in a wonderful turn of events.
Yeah, did you know, by the way, James, this is how absurd that appointment is. And I think it's going to come back to bite Burnham. It's going to haunt him. People don't like this. They really don't. They don't want a convicted crook in a very senior position in the cabinet. He's basically the government. She's the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, which is like a cabinet secretary without portfolio. And they're always sort of basically, the people with that job are the government enforcer, so they go around enforcing Andy's policies. Now, part of the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster's responsibilities is for the fraud office. She's had to have that taken away from her because, of course, you can't have a convicted fraudster being in charge of the fraud office. Rather exposes this appointment for the absurd thing that it is.
Absolutely wonderful, isn't it? Well, Kev, I was actually briefly the Chief of Staff to one of the Chancellors of the Duchy of Lancaster when Liz Truss was briefly Prime Minister. And Louise Haigh will, I'm sure, be thrilled to know that when I was in that post, I was given a work mobile phone. And so I'm sure she will be given a work mobile phone too, which people may or may not.
I hope they don't give her a mobile phone, James, because with her, it leads to bad things.
Bless her. Perhaps like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, she can phone a friend on one of them. It is an important job, though, in that cabinet office. Yeah. And the fact that it's gone to someone who's never had, I think she's had 3 years working for an insurance company, and other than that, her entire life has been in and around politics and Parliament. So actually, she's got more, I think, business experience than anybody in that new cabinet, alongside 3 years that Andy Burnham spent as in a kind of publishing house or something. So between the pair of them, that's the only private sector experience that any of them have got. And for Louise Haigh, it ended with a fraud conviction. So I don't have high hopes for the ability of this government to get stuff done. And nothing legal, that is.
No, I don't either. Let's talk about some of the appointments that he made. Here's one to worry about. Oh, now let me ask you this first, right? I put this to Graham Stringer earlier, the Labour MP, one of those rare Labour MPs who's got the guts to say what he actually thinks. And I said, look, Andy Burnham's come in, you know, Saint Andy has come in on this altar of I'll clean up Westminster. They all do this, don't they? Every single Prime Minister, I'm going to clean up Westminster, no more cronyism, no more corruption, and so on and so on. They all say this. He's coming to say it's a new kind of Westminster, a new kind of politics. He then goes ahead and sacks virtually every single Starmer cabinet secretary, as if to say, well, and as if Andy agrees with the rest of the nation that Starmer's administration was a total disaster from personnel to political decisions, absolutely wrong all the way down the line. So he says that. Now, all those people that he sacked yesterday, quite rightly in my view, good to sack them. I'm not sure about the replacements, but that's another issue. They are going to now share among them £200,000 worth of payoffs. These people have been earning the best part of £150,000 a year as cabinet secretaries for the last 2 years, and they're all now going to get substantial payoffs. Not because they're sacked out of their jobs, but because they're no longer cabinet secretaries. So he wants a new kind of cleaned up Westminster. How about you stop this? Because this disgusts people. It disgusts those of us in the real world. It just basically them taking these politicos in Westminster, taking our tax money and snouts in the trough and dividing it among themselves. It's repulsive, it's revolting, it's disgusting. Why doesn't he do something about that?
And don't forget, of course, that they will stay as members of Parliament, all of those guys. So they'll still be on, what is it, 90-something?
95 grand now, yeah.
It's just, you know, not bad going. Kevin, I'd go back to my theory on this, which is that I would peg all MPs and all ministers' salaries to the health and the strength of the British economy. That if they leave office and the economy has grown by, you know, X certain amount or something, then, you know, well done. Here's a financial inducement for doing it. If, on the other hand, growth has been so sluggish, and actually, when you factor in the increase in our population, largely caused by immigration, and the fact that we've had a kind of real technical recession for a lot of Starmer's reign, then we should take some money off them. Perhaps we could take some equity out of their houses or something like that to be particularly punitive. But I think that would be very sensible. Let's peg MPs' pay to the health of the economy and give them some skin in the game, because at the moment, of course, their pay goes up regardless of what happens to inflation or anything else. They always get ahead of it, whereas the rest of us don't. And it's another example of these guys not having to live with the consequences of their own actions. Safety and law and order being another one, because you'll see all these shots in Downing Street and in Parliament, and they're all protected by armed police officers, which most of the rest of us are not, given the kind of people we've brought into the country in recent years. You might wish that we were.
Indeed. All sorts of appointments that we could discuss. Ed Miliband to Foreign Secretary. It's a good way of getting him out of harm's way to an extent, but it's not going to do much for our special relationship with America. Donald Trump will already does despise everything Ed Miliband stands for. Ed Miliband's also a zealot, not much of a pragmatist, so I suspect relations between the United States of America and Great Britain are about to get a lot worse. So Miliband, or rather Burnham, didn't really think that through for a start. Here's the appointment that hasn't had a lot of attention, a lot of coverage, but one that I think we should be extremely worried about. This is the replacement of Crazy Ed as Net Zero Secretary. This important role, which gives you strings on the national economy. Ed Miliband has ruined the economy with his obsession with windmills and not drilling and solar panels and God knows what. He's ruined our economy and given us the highest energy bills in the Western world. I think that situation is probably going to get worse due to the replacement. His replacement is someone called Miata Farnbule. She's a former head of the New Economic Foundation, which wants the UK to instigate a Green New Deal, which would bind us to spending 2% of our gross domestic product on net zero climate policies. She also wants all companies not to be run by the people who started them, who worked hard to get them going and who employ hundreds of people to help the economy. No. They'll be taken out of the picture in Miata's world. And the people who run the companies that those wealth creators founded will be the workers, the people that they employ. They will be given control of the companies they work for. This is the woman who now is in charge of net zero. It does not bode well, James.
No, I think you're very right to highlight this. The New Economics Foundation, or NEF, is known in some of my circles in Westminster by a better NEF of not economics, frankly, because none of the ideas that any of them have got can hold any water in the real world. It's no wonder why these people are always in these sorts of organisations and never go out into the real world. You never see a mad leftist as, I don't know, the chief economist at Deloitte or Barclays or something, because none of their mad bonkers ideas actually survive contact with reality. And what do you call a Marxist? Someone who's read Marx. What do you call an anti-Marxist? Someone who's read and understood Marx. Because this stuff is all mad, bad, and frankly, it's evil. And I think this is something that we need to be calling out. That the foundational tenets of what a lot of these people believe, they are hardcore socialists, which is frankly, I would say, not that different from being an actual communist. And you get some people that say, oh, well, in theory, I suppose communism's nice, isn't it? Treating everybody equally. I don't think that's nice at all. I think you should treat people with equal respect, but you shouldn't treat people as having the same outcomes. I think that is about as evil and cruel and dehumanising as it's possible to get, and that is the core tenet of the socialist creed that all of the Labour Party MPs sign up for. It's why most of them were cowardly enough to go along with Jeremy Corbyn, except, of course, for our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, who was actually scared of him and quit Parliament and ran away and hid up in the north until Corbyn was actually gone. But this is the same horrible, evil socialist creed that all of these people fundamentally believe in, and they believe in it above the well-being of the nation state. And if they didn't, then they wouldn't be mad net zero zealots the way that this Miata Farnbule character and just like Ed Miliband and all the rest of them are. So don't expect your energy bills to get cheaper anytime soon, even though they've fibbed about this VAT cut coming out this morning, which is not a terribly good start for any government to lie as one of your first announcements, is it?
Yeah, exposed by Darren Jones, a bit of sour grapes by him, sacked from the cabinet, but immediately pointed out, hey, this VAT cut that you're going to save us all of 86p a week on, a couple of pints of milk.
With friends like these, who needs enemies?
Yeah, well, he said, well, it's not funded because you said you're going to fund this VAT cut by money saved by scrapping the digital ID scheme. Well, we hadn't funded the digital ID scheme, so there isn't any money to save. So a collision with reality there, a very early one. But overarchingly, this is the big question. Do you think, James, as calls demanding a general election reach crescendo, that he can continue, Burnham, to get away with this? This amounts to a sort of communist coup d'etat. This guy has just come in unhindered by even a hint of democracy, and suddenly he's in Downing Street saying, right, massive lurch to the left. We're going to put right 40 years of neoliberalism. We're going back to the socialism of the 70s. These are profound, major proposals, and no one voted for them. How can he get away with this? I've got a feeling that the calls, as his unpopular lurch to the left gets worse and worse and worse, that the demands for a general election may become too noisy for him to resist. It's a serious constitutional issue, I think.
I'm going to make myself slightly unpopular and be in a slight minority. That I think that if Andy Burnham can command a majority of support in the House of Commons, then constitutionally he is entitled to be the Prime Minister, and the government of the day is entitled to get its legislation through. But I appreciate and respect that I am in a minority of people.
We should change that system. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the way Parliament works, yes. I mean, I think we've got to do something about this. You know, we've got to stop deluding ourselves that we vote for parties and not the leader. Of course we vote for the leader. We should stop deluding ourselves that we don't. And if that leader changes, the government has to change. There has to be an election.
I think that he will come to realise that as his popularity decreases very quickly, and the fact that he had to put it mildly, and the fact that he hasn't even been stress tested by any proper media interviews yet, as he's sort of running for it, and the fact that these ideas haven't even been socialised with the socialists and his own backbenchers. But I think that what is incumbent on all of us is to remember that they are trying to do this. Right? There's nothing stopping him going to the polls straight away and saying, look, in October I'll do it and I'll come up with a manifesto over the summer. He's not doing this because he's trying to steal that majority that the Conservatives lost rather than Labour won, and he's trying to do mad, bad things with it. And I think that everybody should remember that every single Labour MP, if you live in a seat with a Labour MP, then they have enabled this to happen. And this kind of vandalism of our economy that is going to be taking place is all because those people there. And you should remember that whenever it is that we do end up going to the polls, and that this happens every damn time that we get a Labour government. We've already lost so many jobs. We've already lost so much growth. We've already lost so much investment to be coming in that leads to a worse healthcare system, that leads to a worse education system, that leads to a less safe country on our borders, that leads to more and more disorder and crime and people from third world ideologies coming into the country. This happens every damn time you've got a Labour government. How many more times do we need to tell people? I know the great Mrs. T said that you have to fight a battle more than once in order to win it, but we really need to fight this battle again soon, and we need to win it, because otherwise there ain't going to be much of a country left to save at this rate.
My last question to you, I suppose it's plaintive really. I'm hoping, probably against hope, that Andy Burnham isn't as thick and stupid as his speeches so far have indicated. Do you have the same hope as me, James?
Look, it's the hope that kills you, mate.
Honestly, they make him sound so moronic.
I did think he was being cynical to win over the Labour base, and I now fear, as you do, that he is actually just not very bright. No one can look at this economy we've got right now and think, yes, the problem with the British economy is there is not a sufficiently high level of tax. There are not sufficiently high levels of regulation and red tape holding people back, and that we've got far too much free speech and we've got far too much law and order on the streets. If you look at and you think that, then you're even stupider than you look, Andy Burnham, in your silly T-shirt.
Yeah, and what people want more than anything in the world is more mayors, more devolution. Right. That is definitively, it has been established, the issue that Brits care about the least, devolution.
Okay, when I look out the window, I really want to make sure the buses are a different colour.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be the only thing that Andy Burnham actually managed to achieve.
Yeah.
Not sure what colour they were before or what they are now, but that's the thing that really... It's not Russia, it's not China, it's not the economy, it's not the fact the NHS is rubbish or the fact that kids are still being taught that they can chop their bits off and all the rest of it. No, it's the colour of buses. Please, Andy Burnham, save us from that tyranny.
Well, I'll tell you what the colour of the buses are in Manchester. They're the same colour as the streak up his back when it comes to giving media interviews or public scrutiny. They're yellow. James, very good to talk to you as always. Thanks for coming on. The brilliant James Price there, former Tory government special advisor. Let me know what you think about some of the things he was saying. Let me ask you this. Do you think Andy Burnham's thick? Because I'm beginning to worry. James is right. I thought, he's just playing to the crowd. He's playing to the Labour lefties with everything he said about 70s socialism and all that. I'm beginning to fear. I'm beginning to be terrified he actually believes that claptrap. Do you think Andy Burnham might be a bit stupid? 03444991000. What are the prospects for this country, Burnham's Britain? What will it be like, do you think? Will it be like Britain in the 1970s? He seems to think that's sort of nirvana or heaven, but it's not. It's hell, absolute hell. Is that what you want? Is that what, or is that what you fear? 03444991000. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, we'll go live to Los Angeles to talk to our royal guru about Kinsey Schofield, about Harry, Meghan, and all the other royals. Been pretty eventful couple of weeks on the royal front. We will talk about them with Kinsey next, so you better stick around.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, a survey has revealed that British motorists rate the M27 in Hampshire as the worst motorway in the country due to 24/7 traffic jams there. Got stuck in myself a couple of times. I suggested, as a Londoner, that the M25 is usually a lot worse than that. What's your worst motorway? Karen in Taunton says definitely the M25, so she agrees with me. But also the M5 from Bristol downwards towards Exeter is a close second. Always trouble most days. I've used that road a lot, the M5, from Bristol down to Exeter, and certainly in the summer when all the traffic is going on holiday to Cornwall and Devon. Karen is right, the M5 is dreadful. I say the M25. Ian has texted in to say M27, Kev, not a chance. We just have too many southern softies down here getting their knickers in a twist. You mean we in the south don't know anything about traffic jams like they only do in the north? Andy Burnham would like that. Anyway, Ian says driving up north, anything above the M40 is jam after jam. It is right, Ian is right. And Ian says he's just come off the M27, so he knows what he's talking about. What's your worst motorway? 03444991000. Send us a text or a WhatsApp voice note if you want. Get your calls in, by the way, because we'll be taking calls in the last half hour or so of the show. What do you think about Andy Burnham so far? Rubbish! What do you think about his cabinet? What do you think about Ed Miliband ruining diplomacy as the foreign secretary? What do you think about our crazy nut zero zealot new net zero secretary? What do you think about Burnham ending rough sleeping? No, he's not. What's the point of making an empty promise like that? What do you think? Burnham's Britain. What's your verdict so far? 03444991000. Right, let's go across now to Los Angeles to talk to our royal correspondent, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, are you there? Hi, Kins.
I'm trying to understand if Ed Miliband is close to Prince Harry, or if... Because we now know that Prince Harry's going to be scheming to try to get more security and Yvette Cooper to take in a new job.
It's an interesting question, that, Kinsey, because Ed Miliband's politics will no doubt go down a storm with Prince Harry. Prince Harry likes all that sort of thing. So Ed Miliband, crazed left-winger, doesn't like borders, doesn't like Donald Trump, so on and so forth. So, yeah. But I wonder if... Ed Miliband will take up Harry's cause, which is to try to get armed police protection when he comes to Britain. It hasn't worked so far. We're hearing through the grapevine from Camp Harry and Meghan that Harry has finally dropped that campaign, that he won't continue to insist on armed police protection whenever he comes to Britain for him and his family, because he's trying to mend the bridges he broke with the royal family when he started slagging them off to
The Mirror is reporting something totally different, Kev. Let me tell you what the Mirror is reporting. They are reporting that Prince Harry is reportedly set to continue his campaign for taxpayer-funded security in the UK amid hopes he could visit more with his family. The Mirror reports he will lobby the Home Secretary for security, with sources suggesting he is looking to arrange further meetings with the King to allow him to spend more time with his grandchildren, who have hardly visited the UK since the Sussexes moved to the US in 2020. So that is the Independent reporting that, and the Mirror over the weekend.
Same group, of course. Well, the other papers are reporting that he will drop that campaign in order to try to foster better relations between...
You believe that Prince Harry is going to drop the security thing when he's been obsessed with it for the last 6 years?
I don't know what I believe, Kinsey. What I would hope is that moron would see sense and drop this utterly lost cause. He is never going to get armed police protection. His obsession with this lost cause, on which he has wasted millions and millions of pounds pursuing a forlorn legal case against the British government, it's just absurd. He will never get what he wants. If he is going to continue, then I think he needs psychiatric help.
I think that he is going to continue, because if he is capable of just throwing this away, this campaign away, then why didn't we see Harry with Meghan in the UK? It's as if, and they do this constantly, it's as if they're punishing us by not allowing us to be graced with Meghan Markle's presence throughout the trip. She's in hiding at Althorpe. She doesn't show up to the Invictus event. He treats it as if this is some big loss to humanity, that Meghan Markle is not available for paparazzi shots or for photos, when in reality, I think that there was a huge sense of relief from the Invictus organizers that they didn't have to deal with the chaos that is so well documented in Tom Bower's betrayal through Dr. Sophie Shandaka of when Meghan shows up.
Yeah, also, I think that Harry is not quite across what people feel about him. There are reports now that he's getting a bit concerned because he feels that Americans no longer love him. I'm not sure they ever particularly loved him. They certainly had no particular feelings about him when he turned up in 2018 on Megxit, having run away from this country, from Britain and his royal duties. I don't think they had any particular feeling about him. And then there was a period where they rather liked the sort of Harry and Meghan show, or Isn't It Fun? It's unfolding on our own doorstep in California. Now Harry fears that Americans no longer like him. Well, if that's true, welcome Americans to the club, because we don't like him either. If he thinks he's in a popularity contest, he's not going the right way about it, is he?
We've seen Harry collaborating with a lot of UK outlets and podcasts, you know, even the James Corden soccer football podcast, post-show podcast, was, I think, more of a UK entity than an American entity, in my opinion. I'm not watching James Corden talk about sports. I'm assuming that's for an entirely different demographic. So
I don't think you're the target market of James Corden and football, or soccer talk, as you would call it. Yeah, it's not for Kinsey Schofield, that.
No, so I do. You are seeing Prince Harry pivot when it comes to how he's spending his media currency and what he's doing media-wise. And I think he's trying to impress a completely different audience with a completely different and vulgar sense of humor, like the one we saw on the football podcasts, where he talked about, you know, trimming down below and things like that. Which is why I have a hard time believing he's trying to come back to the UK as a working prince. You know, you don't behave like that and think that there's still going to be a door open for you when you're talking about, you know, downstairs on a rugby podcast.
We're also hearing, Kinsey, that after her brief visit to Britain, where we never saw her or the kids, as far as we understand. Harry had been here for 3 or 4 days. They wafted in from Portugal, where they have a house, and went directly to the Althorpe estate, where Princess Diana is. Or rather, I'm sorry, I've got that wrong. Went directly to Highgrove House, King Charles's country mansion, where there was this nice reunion between Archie, Lilibet, the grandkids, and the King. And then what we understand is that Harry probably went to Althorpe, the Althorpe estate, to visit his mother's grave alone. But we never saw Meghan or the kids. Some speculation in this country that they never actually turned up. But either way, the Times is reporting that Meghan feels great sadness, I'm quoting there, over not carrying out any public engagements while her dim husband obsessed on security while they were here in Britain. That she was sad not to be seen in public. I'm not convinced about that. I suspect that she was terrified of what would have happened if she'd have showed her face in public. She would have been booed by the British public, who didn't really appreciate her calling us a race of slave drivers and racists. So she reaped, or would have reaped, what she sowed.
I think that that's one of those statements that you have to make after these charities that are fueled so much by important volunteers have spent months preparing for you to make a visit, preparing for you to make an appearance. You know, there was the story about how the school, I believe it was in Brooklyn or it was somewhere in New York, had to repaint the room Meghan was going to be in, had to purchase throw pillows because Meghan had some very clear, Meghan had a very clear visual that she wanted when she was coming in to read these children The Bench, which was a commercial, you know, pursuit of hers. She wasn't even there in a saint capacity. She was there trying to sell a book. And so I think that that's one of those statements you have to make when so many people have put effort towards your visit and you cancel on them at the last minute and they realize that they've wasted a ton of time, money, and resources on an event that's not going to come to fruition. Had she not said, oh, I was sad or I was disappointed, she would look like the tyrant that we believe that she is, which is just whatever, this was for my benefit anyway. This was for positive press for me, which ultimately is what I think likely was what she was trying to accomplish with any sort of engagement in the United Kingdom.
My friend Alison Boshoff is reporting in the Daily Mail that actually Harry is deeply regressing the whole business.
You're ruining my whole podcast episode, because this is all we're talking about on my podcast. Don't do this to me, Kevin.
Yeah, but he wants to reverse Megxit. Is he going to do it?
No.
Okay. I mean, seriously, to go back, you know, what is it? Why is it that this guy thinks he can do things like this? You know, he cast the die, didn't he? That he went there 8 years ago, or he ran away 8 years ago, isn't it now? Proceeded to sit there with his wife, trashing this country, trashing the royal family, saying the royal family was full of racists, saying we were a nation of slave drivers, and then he expects us to all go, oh, well, that's all forgotten. That's all forgotten. All is forgotten and forgiven. Yeah, back in the fold. I mean, why doesn't he understand that that is not doable?
I think what we're seeing is the last resort. You know, if Harry, and you know this as well as I do, if Harry and Meghan had a blossoming Netflix career and they were preparing to launch Meet Me at the Lake, The Wedding Date, and the Afghanistan movie that I can never remember to save my life, and they were excited about some new projects on the horizon, and Spotify kept pumping money into them because they were such great content creators and they were reliable and consistent, then there's no way in hell Prince Harry would be crawling on his knees begging daddy to take him back. This is a last resort. They are concerned about money. They spend millions of dollars on security every year, millions of dollars on security. Harry is going to have to pay out millions of dollars for this Daily Mail loss. That is, I've heard my sources who are close to Harry's team have said that everyone is sweating regarding that money. We're going to find out how much they owe later this month, but sweating over how much Harry's going to owe for the Daily Mail case. And I just think that Harry looks at his future and realizes that his skills are very limited. How many real estate conventions in Toronto are going to hire him to come talk about the death of his mother? Because make that make sense. You know,
It doesn't.
Yeah, he's got to survive. And I think that he realizes the only way to survive is daddy.
And I guess my last question to you, looking forward to doing your podcast later, by the way, Kinsey, is this. You know, I said on my programme what just happened this week, which you also always feature so importantly in. This is a 41-year-old man, 41-year-old father of three. The only thing I can see that is going on in his life at all is sort of vaguely having something to do with this once every 2 years sporting event, the Invictus Games. Very worthy cause, very worthy event for wounded veteran heroes, military heroes, nothing wrong with that. But that's the only thing that's once every 2 years. That is the only thing he's doing. This guy needs to find a purpose in life. You can't be a 41-year-old man, a father of three, without anything to do. It's not good for you.
Well, that's why he told that rugby podcast he's a full-time dad, because we're getting the sense that he's a full-time dad, part-time surfer, part-time pot smoker, and you know what else? I don't know. But...
He's a duke. He's a duke. Remember that? That's what he concluded that he did for a living. He was a duke. That's it. Good, isn't it?
Well, I've met dogs named Duke that have more responsibility than Prince Harry.
And more intelligence as well, I'd hazard a guess. Listen, Kinsey, we'll talk later, but great to have you on the show as always. Thank you so much. The brilliant Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered there. Now, let's go to break. When we come back, I want to get you on the phone, 03444 991 1000. We need to talk about Burnhamism. It's about 24 hours old, or did it start last Friday? I don't know. I get lost in the mists of time. What do you think of it so far? 03444991000. What did you think about that cabinet reshuffle? It wasn't a cabinet reshuffle. It was a massacre. Followed by the replacement of the mediocrities by mediocrities. 03444991000. When are we ever going to see any common sense in our migrant crisis? Could we please stop having judges who look at a guy with a beard, a protruding Adam's apple, and a receding hairline, a deep voice, and say that's a child? Can we get rid of judges like that? Because something has to happen here. It's mad, don't you think? 03444991000. What do you think of our new net zero secretary, who will be even more zealous than crazy Ed Miliband? Can you believe that? 03444991000. Your calls next. I'll read some of your messages. Peter Cardwell will be in a little while to tell you what he's got lined up for you between 7 and 10 p.m. So lots still to come. Stay where you are. Back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
More motorway talk. This is Bill from Solihull. He says, hi Kev, the M5, M6 junction, near junction 9, can take you hours to get through. So that's the M5, M6 junction 9. Apparently, according to Bill, is probably the worst section of motorway in the country. I think I vaguely know where you're talking about. It is pretty bad up there. And also, Bill says we need a general election as soon as possible. I think Bill is right. Do you agree with it? Let me know. Do you think Andy Burnham's getting away with murder here? We need a general election. How can he do this? Let me know. Do we need a general election? Does this guy need to put his ideas to the electorate and we can vote for them? So he can say to us, I'm going to take you back to 1970s flat cap Labour socialism. And then we can vote for it if we like that idea, or more than likely not vote for it because we don't like that idea. As things stand, we got no say in the matter. That's a disgrace. Frank says the M62 between junctions 25 to 27 in both directions is shocking. He says, by the way, I've been on the M25 today near Heathrow, always slightly congested around these parts. Slightly. If you get away with slightly congested on the M25 near the airport, you've got away with it because it's often like logjam there. As I say, I'm biased because I'm a Londoner. I have to use the M25. I think it's the worst. Do you know the M25 is the most crowded, overused road in all the world? In the whole world, the M25. Busiest road in the world. Bloody well shows as well when you're on it. Not so much a motorway, more of a car park. You just park your car and you sit there, not moving. So M25 for me. Keep your bad motorway suggestions rolling in. Let's listen to a voice note from Kev on motorways.
Best motorway in the country? I think that's my subject. I'm an HGV driver. I go all over. I think the best motorway, yes, statistically, is probably right. But the M27, that ain't that bad. Yes, there's roadworks on it. Yes, it's annoying, but it's nowhere near as bad as some of the others. Another guest has mentioned the M5. Yeah, not a great one at times, I should say. The M6 needs a mention. Come on. But, you know, this is the one that no one will mention. And in my opinion, this is the motorway that a lot of truck drivers will nod their head at this, and car drivers. The worst motorway in the country is not even one of the biggest ones. The M42. Yeah, the M42 that goes around the bottom of Birmingham. That place, because of the clean air zone, has all the people avoiding the clean air, getting on the motorway for a junction and getting off. It's always got roadworks on there. It's always blocked. It's a hellhole.
M42, Kev, a truck driver, so he knows what he's talking about, drives for a living, knows all of these motorways. He says the worst is the M42. I mean, I'm sure I've been on it, but I can't picture it in my mind. But a lot of all those motorways, they all intersect, don't they, around Birmingham? You've got Spaghetti Junction and all that, and it is a bit hellish. So I bow to Kev's superior knowledge. Keep it coming. The worst motorways in Britain. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to a new caller. Love a new caller. Dan in West Yorkshire. Hi, Dan. What would you like to say?
How you doing, buddy? Are you having a good day?
Kind of, I suppose. No, I'm having a good enough day, but I'm a bit worried about the future, what with our new Prime Minister and everything. What would you like to say, Dan?
So just a quick, more of a question, really. There may be an answer, but God forbid there will be. When we want something, when the British public wants something, needs something, requires something, or requests something, why does the money have to be found from somewhere else? Whereas when somebody else comes begging on our door for money, it's just there instantly.
It's a good point, Dan. You get all this, you know, we're trying to fund this. We can't fund this. Well, you know, what you'd like in the ideal world was that a government had a certain amount of money available to it and spent it accordingly. But before they do anything these days, they have to somehow find the money to fund these new initiatives. And I'll tell you for why, mainly, Dan, it is this. First and foremost, before they do anything, this government has to find a staggering £350 billion a year to pay our welfare bill. And that is going up. They reckon within about 3 or 4 years, that budget will be £420 billion. So there's never any money left. And the welfare bill is why funding is always a problem for everything else apart from benefits. Good, isn't it?
But like I say, you know, when anybody else comes begging for the money, whether it's condoms to India or whatever it may be, or Zelensky needs...
No, Pakistan, they're the ones who got all the condoms, yeah.
Yeah, or is it Zelensky needs another 6 million drones?
Oh, yeah, well, we all support Ukraine. We all support Ukraine unquestionably, don't we? And we don't question that a second. Everybody supports Ukraine. I'm a sceptic about this. I'm a sceptic. I'm sick of giving them money. Yeah, I'd like all the billions we give to Ukraine to be spent on Britain. Is that controversial?
I would love that as well, I'll be honest. That would be my first place for it.
Yeah. I guess look, I understand it, the geopolitical imperative. You have to help Ukraine in its battle against Russia, or Russia will get even worse in its expansionism. That said, it really annoys me the way these politicians, Starmer, Boris Johnson and the gang, assume that all of us plebs who live in this country are going, oh, no, please take our tax money, all of it, and give it to Ukraine, give it to Zelensky, give it to Kiev. You know, well, I don't really like that much, and I sense you don't either, Dan. Taking us for granted, they'll always support us on Ukraine, I think maybe we should tell them that maybe we won't. Don't you think that would be a good idea?
Yeah, because wasn't it documented that only 30% of it actually gets through?
Yeah, well, that you can take that. You could take that as a given. Yeah, I mean, this assumption that everyone supports the continuing massive amounts of money we give to Ukraine is just that. It's not an assumption, it's a presumption. They presume we agree. Well, I don't really, and I sense you don't. I reckon millions of people don't agree. It's about time we spoke up on all of this. Dan, excellent first call. Please call me again. Dan, first caller there in West Yorkshire. Let's go to break. More calls, more messages when we return. Stay where you are.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm trying to get my head around this concept that people keep telling me that there's a big difference between homelessness and rough sleeping. Is there? I wish somebody could explain it to me. Is rough sleeping something that you got a house, you know, nice house, but you go on holiday by camping in the street for a couple of weeks? You go a rough sleeping vacation. Is that what it is? I would suggest that homelessness and rough sleeping are pretty close, wouldn't you? You kind of have to be homeless to rough sleep, don't you? It sounds like a bureaucratic claptrap. Homelessness, rough sleeping, they're both the same. Mind you, we won't have to talk about this fairly soon because Andy Burnham's going to end rough sleeping. 340 million quid. It's going to end rough sleeping. You might as well set fire to that money because you ain't going to end rough sleeping, Andy. You really aren't. Right, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Elizabeth in Chorley. Hi, Elizabeth. You're worried about the new net zero secretary. So am I.
Hiya, Kevin. Hope you're well.
I'm well, yeah. What would you like to say about...
I'm very worried. Very, very worried. In fact, I wish Ed Miliband was still the Energy Secretary.
You can't say worse than that, can you?
No. Miata Fambula, her father was a cabinet minister in the government of Liberia in the 80s.
Is that right?
A horrible, bloodthirsty regime.
Well, you can't necessarily blame her for the sins of her father.
I can't blame her, but she's a Marxist.
Yeah, she clearly is. Yeah, but then again, I think the Prime Minister is as well.
Well, he is, but the fact is, she's a Marxist. she's running one of the most important departments in our country.
Yeah, she's going to make it worse. She will. I think she'll be worse than Ed Miliband. I mean, if you thought he was a zealot, this woman has all the signs of utter fanaticism.
She is worse than Miliband. I don't know how Andy Burnham is going to control her.
What frightens me, Elizabeth, is this. Andy Burnham knows this about
and he's still appointed
Miatta Farnborough, and he's given her the job. He knows she's a zealot. He knows that she's essentially Ed Miliband on steroids, who will turbocharge his insanity, his net zero insanity. And he gives him and he gives her the job.
What should we deduce from that?
That we have a Marxist Prime Minister who's going to destroy this country.
Correct. That's why I'm calling.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the call, Elizabeth, and I'm
terrified.
Now, I don't want to be rude to you or ungallant, but I sense you might, like me, remember the 1970s.
Yes, I do.
And they were not a pretty sight, were they?
Well, Andy Burnham was born in 1970.
Yeah.
I was born in 1966. So I remember my father, who was self-employed, he didn't do a 3-day week, but he queued up at petrol stations.
Well, 3-day weeks were imposed on people. To be fair, that was Ted Heath's Tory government as they lost their standoff.
I'm not saying it wasn't.
As they lost their standoff.
But I remember the power cuts.
Yeah. Well, I do. Yeah, I do too. It was a bad time. Elizabeth, I gotta move on. But thank you for an excellent call. Peter Cardwell is entering the studio. We'll find out from him in just a little while what he's got lined up for you. Here is a WhatsApp voice. Not a voice message, a text message from Suze. We played that latest Instagram video from Burnham. She says, Suze, that video, Kev, Burnham, he's creepy. He's just not authentic. Credibility zero. Disingenuousness on legs. I wouldn't buy a second-hand car from that man. I would be sure. I will be sure he'll turn back the clock. He will. That's what's worrying. Peter Cardwell's in the studio. Hi, Peter. What do you got lined up for us?
Hi, Kevin. We've been hearing from Andy Burnham. He wants to be the cost of living government, but can he afford the cost of Burnham? Because there are a lot of unfunded commitments that have been made, and we're going to have a look at that. There are also 28 ministers in the cabinet. Do you know how many of them have private sector experience?
Well, about 2, if you're lucky.
Exactly 2.
Didn't I get that as a guess?
One of them was Andy Burnham, who had 3 years in a small publishing business after university. The other one was Louise Haigh, who had